おはようございます。新共和国パイロットです。今日も、マイクロソフトフライトシミュレーターの、公式集会に参加していきたいと思います。今日の飛行区域は、カナダですね。あと昨日、メッサーシュミット BF109、負けプレイに出てたので買いました。今日見えないかなと思って楽しみにしております。離陸していきますね。パーキングブレーキオフ。
Canada Day edition, departing from Quebec City.
Rock and roll.
じゃあ流れに乗っていきますか。このでっかいのの後ろぐらいか。
How's it going, eh? How's it going, eh? Eh?
Well, you know, now that I've got a canoe strapped to my de Havilland Beaver, I just get retract my gear, as you can see in there. Really, the only thing that could make this more Canadian is, you know, a double from Tim Hortons and a box of Timbits.
Yeah, no,
hey, guess what I have?
Guess what you have
there? Double
yeah.
from Tim Hortons and a box of Timbits.
Imagine that. Perfect.
Got it from my store.
I was going to say, I can ration send that out. Mine hasn't arrived yet.
It's really nice to Rash that they let you set up in front of the store like that.
あの人はいつもスピットファイヤーの人だな。
They're so friendly.
Oh yeah, we got Factual Gullas in the chat, another Canadian-based Microsoft license.
BF109 おらんか。
She also dropped a dad joke.
Continue for east departure.
All right, Factual, we're gonna put you on the spot. Can you give us a Canadian-themed dad joke?
I'm sure she can.
Looks like Andrew is rolling.
Extra 145, leaving my airspace frequency change approved.
We have Canoe Head too. Says, did somebody say canoe? Hi there.
Also Canadian. Canoe head, I mean. Not necessarily the person in chat, but...
Well, with a name like that, I would imagine, right?
Extra
Diesel A is
145,
airborne,
please acknowledge.
supporting the beautiful glass cockpit in the Diamond DA40. Factual says, putting me on the spot to tell a joke, I'm having Nunavut.
Get it?
Very good, Factual. Referencing Canada's newest territory of Nunavut. Became a territory in 1999. Canoe Head lives close to CD in Richmond near the end of runway 26. Well, I was actually just in Richmond last weekend. I went to Richmond Night Market for the first time. Check that out. Very famous Vancouver attraction. And yeah, it is right on the end of the runway. I was watching planes land the entire time I was there.
That's where I bought my electric bikes. I bought them there last time I was there for business and visited their factory. Had them shipped home, and then I flew home. They make really rugged electric bikes in BC.
Lesage Tower Extra
Once again, we got a
145
really full
frequency
panel today,
change.
so just a reminder to my fellow streamers, if you would like me to switch to your point of view anytime, if you want to show something neat or if you're about to land or something, just let me know and I'll switch it over. Otherwise,
I might fly
buttons.
Application. よいしょ。
Okay, we'll switch
Oh,
it. Look at some Tom doing some
Fancy stuff.
fancy flying, yeah.
See if I can actually fly.
これ何の街だろう。
He can. We know he can. We've been watching him for 3 years. He can do this.
ランドマークが1個ありますな。
So when I went to Tim's this morning, by the way, I did this entirely for the humor, just so I could, you know, hold up a double-double and a box of Timbits on the stream, and everyone would have a good laugh at that. When I went to Tim's this morning, I just asked for an assorted box of Timbits. I haven't opened it yet. I have no idea what I got. What do you think is the chances they gave me nothing but old-fashioned plain?
No.
Don't think so. Never seen it.
Never seen it. They
カナ
always
ダ
give you a
で
great
す
variety.
ね。カ
Yeah,
ナ
they did, in
ダ。
fact. Okay, I've got some chocolate
got
ones
it all.
here. I've got some jam-filled ones. There are a couple plain ones though. There's some honey glaze. Yeah, it's a good mix.
I
In my opinion, honey glaze is the best of it. That's my humble
ランド
Honey
マー
glazed,
ク
yeah.
全然違う
And
現れ
sour,
てない
well, sour, is it sour cream glazed? No, sour
Oh,
glazed.
sour cream glaze. That is a good one.
That, yeah, that's my go-to for donuts.
Yeah. But you know that those plain ones, I think that's the only way they can get rid of them CDLs. They put them in the variety pack.
I'm certain that's.
I've never heard anybody order the plain ones. So where are we flying over, CDL? Where are we right now?
Well,
This
we're
is-
currently
this is
flying over
historic, right?
Quebec City.
ケベック
And,
そうかケベック州っ
We've got. Is anyone
て言っ
looking
て
at
た
the
から
Chateau
ケベッ
Frontenac
ク
right
シ
now?
ティなんだ
I have it in my view.
なるほ
You've
ど
got it? Okay, let's switch over to Arash's POV. Circling over the Fairmont Chateau Frontenac, this is one of the historical Great Railway hotels in Canada. Originally, it was built by CP Rail way back when they were building the original coast-to-coast rail network across Canada. And at every major city, they built one of these beautiful, extravagant hotels that were all built to look like, European castles. And to this day, they're considered very important, significant, major landmarks in every city that one of them is built. So here in Quebec, there's the Chateau Frontenac, Maple. What's the one in Montreal called? I'm drawing a blank right now.
I am also drawing a blank, but I know exactly where it is.
Yeah, in Toronto, it's the Royal York. Is that right for it?
Yeah, Royal York, and then in Ottawa.
Yeah, Chateau Laurier in Ottawa. We'll see that today, actually, when we fly. Just adjacent to Parliament Hill.
Right
beside the
next to
canal.
Queen Elizabeth.
The Queen Elizabeth. Okay, Montreal.
I personally would have actually stayed at the Frontenac.
Oh, really?
Back when I was in grade 9, we did a school trip, and Quebec City is where we came, and we stayed at the chateau.
We did as well in
こ
grade
んな
7.
ことないって言ってたけどカナダってアップデートがあってその時公式集会があったかなあ
I'm gonna switch over
こ
to
の
my,
飛行機も買ったとこですよ
Canadian
初めて
history.
見るな
This area kind of adjacent to the
なんか
Chateau
すごいでっ
Frontenac
かい
that
6
just
発
passed.
の
It looks like
フランス
there's
の
military fortifications and some like trenches and barricades
飛
out
行
here.
艇ですよ
This is the Plains of Abraham.
どのぐらいでっかいんだろう
And, it was on this site in what in Europe was known as the Seven Years War. But it
うわ
also
でけ
extended to
あ
North America.
ま
And
た
there was a
後ろが
battle
変わった
between British
形
and
の
French
尾翼
forces
だな
here on the
お
Plains
お
of Abraham. And
あ
interesting
でもマ
enough,
ーキュリー
both
じゃあマーキュリー
commanding
じゃない
generals
ハーキュリー
of
のが
both
ちょっとでっ
armies,
け
the
えか
French commanding
窓
officer
がいっ
and
ぱいあん
the
なこれ
English commanding officer, General Montcalm and General Wolfe, they were both killed in action in this battle. Very highly unusual that happens, where the two most senior commanding officers of both armies lose their lives in a single battle.
Quebec City is also famous for the carnival. If well, most people I'm sure are aware, in February, pretty famous, and it's multiple maple syrup. I know the word in French, but I don't know the English word. But when you have something called in French sirop d'érable, which is I guess it's like a raw little maple syrup substance, like drop it in ice. It's really tasty.
スピ
Recommend.
ットファイヤースピットファイヤ
Anyone
ー
do that.
メサシュミットはおらんのか
All right, I'm going to get back on course, and we'll start heading towards Montreal.
Yeah, when we came up in grade 9, we actually came up
Folks.
on the train
ちょっとフォックス
and we
な
had to take the ferry across the.
3種類出てるんだよなどれなんだ
So it
ろ
was an interesting experience.
う DH2DH 今日はデハビランドカナダなんか
Speak of staying at some of
カナダの
these
メ
grand
カナ
hotels.
ダだ
Actually,
け
there's
じゃな
three
い
of
か
them
もしれないです
so
けど
far. Fairmont
カナダに
Palliser in
ゆかりのある
Calgary,
メーカーなのか
the
な
Chateau Lake Louise,
DHC
Lake
の
Louise
人が多い
obviously,
です
and
ね
then the Empress Hotel in Victoria.
あの
Always
Lake
good
Louise is
time.
公式の
gorgeous. I
今日
love
は
it there. It's so nice.
周
Yeah,
回
we've been to Lake
推
Louise a
奨
few
の飛
times
行
on
機
the
ですか
stream
らね
before when we've toured
DHC4
other parts of Canada,
DHC2
such as the
が
Rocky
飛んで
Mountains.
ますね
I think we all went to Lake
Whoosh.
Louise when the Canada update was released. I think everybody went there.
Agreed. To Banff as well.
Yeah, for sure. Boy, those two
BF109 は飛んでませんな
Let's switch over to your POV there, Porter.
Just looking back. Not sure if they're transparent. Looks like a couple people did go under the
絶対い
I
ると
went
思
under
ったの
it.
にな
Flagging
い
ice
ね
There.
just go
Do you
under.
have Scratch enabled?
Well, of course. Just kidding. Who wants to start over? We're gonna do daring things like that you wouldn't normally do in real flight, but you want to make sure you have some kind of safety net.
Well, I do have Crash enabled, so I have to be super careful.
We used to be that record.
リアルタイムの、ライブウ
We
ェ
would
ザー
always
で
we
す。
would always say that on stream until it crashed.
Canada.
And people would roll their eyes and wait around for us to start up
結
again.
構なんか
So,
天気はいいですけど、かすんで
speaking of
ます
being
ね。
reckless, when I was
ケベックブリッジ。
Speaking of being reckless,
you
let me
know,
tell you.
low hour
ブリッ
private
ジです
pilots.
よ。
I used to do spins for fun. I would, you know,
Sure.
I'd follow all the safety precautions, do all the checks and everything, follow the checklist appropriately, and do it over a safe area. But I would just take a Piper Tomahawk up to 5,000 feet and go through the checklist and make the thing spin. And
トライ
do the
モー
proper
ター。
recovery.
あ、トライ
I
モー
thought
ター
it was
も
fun.
この前。
Do you know
Can't
the,
imagine doing that now.
CD, the aviation
今はどうなんかな。
just outside
も
of
う無料期間は過ぎたのか
here in
な。
Halifax, they
無
actually
料
have a
で
Tomahawk hanging
手に
from the
入っ
ceiling.
た
Oh.
That was
貴
the
重
one
な
that
飛行機で
CDL
ございます。
I was going to say,
Well,
there's a
They'd have to
non-zero
retire it
chance I've
afterwards.
personally
おこれも
flown
な
that
かなか
aircraft.
立派な橋で
If
ご
you
ざい
have
ます
even
な。
the tail number on it, I can check my logbook. There's probably actually a very decent chance I have flown that exact plane.
they also have an F-86
Dark
Sabre
Star.
jet there.
ダー
Done
ク
up
スター
in
のいい
the
ところに
Golden
大体
Hawks
長ある。
livery, but it actually isn't one that was flown by the Hawks.
あ、2本橋がある。
There's a few of those around Canada. I know in Petawawa, CFB Petawawa, they have also one of those in front of the Silver Dart Arena, aptly named also. And they've got a Sabre there. I think Trenton has one too in front of their community center. They've also got the gold, you know, that gold paint scheme of that plane that they
Look at all these beautiful people on my screen all trying to fly underneath the bridge. I guess I'll do the same. I'll have to go in a very steep descent here. I wasn't planning on doing this one too high, so hopefully I won't overspeed my beaver here.
Peer pressure always gets a pilot in trouble, CDL. You know that.
トライモーター。
Made it
ちょっと見ようかな。
Not that I know of.
No, but when it comes out, you know I'm going to have it for sure. There's one right here.
They actually, speaking of tutors, the snowbirds
Try
are
motor,
actually
Ford.
doing a flyover Halifax
Try
Airport
motor
tomorrow
なん
at
で
lunchtime
エンジン
on
が
our
3つあ
Canada
るや
Day,
つですよ
assuming
ね
that。the weather is fit for it.
ユンカー、その
That's the tutor that is being referenced in the conversation.
JU52 と同じ。
That's a beautiful plane.
でもユンカーその JU52 翼のところ吊り下げてなかった気
This
が
is
する
in
な
the
よ。
Snowbirds livery. And, you know, this is, when this comes out in the sim, we had it in FSX. When this comes out in this sim,
な
by
か
all
な
means, a
か、
whole
なか
bunch
な
of
かなんていう
formation
のかな。
teams will
雰囲気のある飛行機でございますな。
Of
こ
course,
の
it's
前
got
ツイ
this
ッターで
beautiful-
もなんか写真が回ってき
Start
て
eating some chips now.
ましたね。
Must be nice. We did put in our orders when we heard CDL was going to pick up Timbits. We all kind of, you know, put in
な
our
かな
orders.
かいいね。
Well, okay. For any non-Canadians watching the stream right now, anyone from Canada knows that I'm speaking the truth. But anyone who is not from Canada, there is literally a Tim Hortons. If you go to any Canadian city, there's a Tim Hortons every 3 blocks, possibly even every 2 blocks. And I'm not exaggerating. Like panelists, back me up on this. That's 100% correct.
Yeah, we're not.
あ
Yeah, we know.
隊長発見。
But, well, if I go down my
隊
hill,
長にご挨拶を
There's a
し
Tim
に行くか。
Hortons.
ご挨拶をしに行
Up
く
the
か。
about a kilometer away. If I go up the
よ
hill,
ろしくお願い
there's
し
another
ま
Tim
す。
Hortons.
So,
It's
you
so
know,
true.
あ、いた、隊長。
any one of us on this panel could have got your own box of
Spitfire
Timbits
また
quite
護衛
easily
し
just
て
by
る。
walking down the street.
青いな、あれ。
I had company. Is that my excuse? I couldn't leave.
SMT Ottawa is saying there's actually more than one every 2 blocks.
No, they are independently owned. Each one of them is, you know, it's a franchise. Right?
隊長おはようございます。今日もよろしくお願いしま
And
す
there's。drive-through, of course, which is packed every morning with lineups. As a matter of fact, last time I was in Moncton, which I think is your hometown, CDO, I was there on business, and I remember the only, on the way to the classroom, the only place that, you know, the only Tim Hortons I could find was on the main highway, and there was actually a traffic cop directing traffic because the lineups from both sides of the highway had to take their turns going into the Tim Hortons. That's how busy it was. They actually put a traffic cop on there.
So that's your tax dollars at work, funding traffic
Well,
direction for
yeah,
private
traffic
business.
directions for coffee. Yeah, that's how important it is.
About 15 years ago, we had a hurricane come through here in Halifax,
知らない。
and it took a power out for most of the province. But here in Halifax, there was, count them, 1 Tim Hortons that still had power. You couldn't get near the place.
やっぱでっかい飛行機は存在感あります
People were
な。
coming driving like a half an
いいの
hour,
持ってますな、
45 minutes,
旦那
and。sitting in line with their engines and idling to get their coffee. But guys, you've got to get gas. The gas stations don't have power either.
That is true.
But it was absolutely, it was crazy. The lineup going into that one, Tim Hortons and Sackville, was just crazy.
やっぱハキュリーズに比べるとだいぶちっちゃいんだな。あれなんか
So I'm of course in the Beaver, the DHC2. Then next week we got a DHC4 Caribou. Look at that, sporting the maple
翼
leaf
に
on
つい
its
てる
tail.
船の東西の間に潜れたもんな。
So since most of us are flying with the Beaver, I think that's a good time to ask this question. Who knows what beaver tail is?
Oh, that's a Canadian delicacy.
That's a good question.
We have it on the waterfront in Halifax. We can get
敵あれこっちにやつだけエッ
Famously
ジ
in Ottawa.
止まってますよ旦那大丈夫ですか
The market in Ottawa, they sell beaver tails there.
俺もマイクロソフトフライトシミュレーターならではのご愛嬌というやつですな。4発は動いてるけど2発止まってるじゃん。
You can eat those things.
literally only based on the shape.
Yes.
All right, hang on just one sec. I gotta do some tech issues. I see Peter has joined us. Let me just get his camera set up. So talk amongst yourselves. I'll be
これ
back.
さっきものすごいでっかい。
So, you know, beaver tail would be like, you know, when people fry liver so hard that you can, you know, it's like shoe leather. So people think that beaver tail is like some kind of shoe leather you can bang on the table and get people's attention. That's not what it is.
寒い時って針葉樹のイメージですが、そこまで針葉樹でもありませんな。
A flaky, flat pastry. Let's see you say that after happy hour.
飛行機の名
Flaky,
前が
flat
出てない。
pastry.
Flat flaky pastry. Yeah.
That's it. Oh, you downloaded it. It's like nothing flying.
もちゃかり変
No,
態
we all
M5。
downloaded the same one. We started out in Quebec City, went one direction, and did a really sharp turn at Chateau, I think it was. And now
Thank God.
we're heading west.
Going down the river to Montreal.
Like they all say, go west, you know, go west. That's where we're heading.
I'd say beaver tail's nice, but poutine is the.
I knew that was going to come up
No.
sooner or
Yeah,
later.
right?
Maple
I mean,
A had to
beaver-
say
Oh,
it. Right?
God.
Beaver
no.
tail's nice.
Let's talk
but
about
poutine. We're in
poutine.
Quebec. Come on, we
Let's
have
see.
to talk about. We have
Hang on,
to address poutine.
let's put a pin on that just for 1 second. I do want to revisit this topic though. Peter, welcome. Can
When you
everyone
see
hear you?
Peter's screen, look at him, you guys. Look at him. Canadian flag. Peter.
BF109 なんでおらんの
All right, chat. Can everyone
スター
hear
ル
me? Peter?
に
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
5 minutes. Nice pack.
やっぱあれが目立っちゃうなどうしても。ヘリコプターだ。ブラブラブラブラブラブラブラブラブラブラブラ。
You wouldn't download a country.
Almost.
Almost. Wrong flag for a duchy. Yeah, but he's here. He's flying in Canada.
And look at this. We even have Peter's.
これの下にいるとなんかすごい本来揺
What are
れ
you,
そう
what
だ
are
け
you
ど。
flying today, Peter?
The Canadian made the
ブラブラブラブラブラブラ
Oh, very good. Just like Maple A.
ブラブラブラブラ。
Right.
And everybody else is flying. We do have a little beaver.
It's nice to see a caribou in the area.
Oh, Rad Baron is going to set me off on a rant. Rad Baron says Star Trek Strange New Worlds was made in Toronto and made poutine canon last night. So I haven't seen the latest episode, so
な
thank
ん
you
か
for that.
も
But
う
there
回る
is,
ところが多くてヘリコプター近寄
I
る
did
と
see
な
the
んか
trailer. And there's a
切り刻まれ
scene
そうで
where
す
a
な。
young Captain Kirk
お、
doesn't
ヤ
know
ン
how
キャ
to
プ
use
テ
a
ンカー
revolving
ク。
door. And one of the other crew members in the Enterprise says, "What's the matter? You've never used a door before?" And in the trailer, Kirk says, "What do you expect? I'm from space." And I'm like, "No,
No, you're from Canada.
no, he's from Iowa. Captain Kirk is born in Iowa. This is
Oh, he's born in Iowa.
established Star
Okay.
Trek canon.
That's
He
funny.
is not from space."
なんかアイオワ生まれだとかカナダ生まれだとか言ってる。
And he
設
has
定上はア
actually
イオ
been
ワ
in space for real too.
Based on
生まれじゃなかったでしたか？
the
キャプテンカーク。
reworked
ジェームス・タイベリア
he
ス・
was
カー
actually
ク。
born in space because his mother gave birth getting away from the exploding
that-
ship.
that
But he
is
grew
true,
up in
yeah.
Iowa.
あーしまった。ウィッチ入れてきてもよかったけど、まあちょっと世界観的にあれかな。
Is from Montreal.
Here's a fun fact about William Shatner in Montreal. The student building at the McGill University campus,
あ、
where
この前も
Patrick
この人ウィッチだったな。
is actually named for William Shatner. And it was voted that way by the students at McGill. He was an alumnus. He was a graduate of
BF109 はどこにおるのかね。今日は参加しとらんのかね。
classical actor, believe it or not. And the students at McGill University voted to name their student building after William Shatner. And at first, he's actually kind of a very private person. At first, he didn't want the building named after him. But he only agreed to it when he found out that the students themselves voted for that. It was the university administrators that were wanting to name the building after him.
And James Doohan is also Canadian.
James Bond.
Chief engineer of Montgomery Sky. And very not a lot of people know this. He's actually missing the finger on one hand.
Yeah, if I remember the story correctly, he actually lost that on Juno Beach during the D-Day landings.
Yep. He had it shot off.
Oh, wow. It is a good story.
And it's very rarely. I don't remember what the episode was, but you actually do get a chance to actually see the fact that he is short of one, that he's missing a finger on that hand. But it doesn't happen very often.
CD.
Yes.
My flight then hasn't been loaded correctly. Do you have anything for me?
Just follow the river.
Follow the taxi.
On a generally southwesterly heading.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I can do that.
That'll get you there. This river flows all the way to Montreal.
Any preferred altitude? I'm currently at 1,500.
Yeah, just over 2,000 myself.
That'll work.
Yeah, it could be red. I didn't remember, but I did know.
あれそうじゃない ?ME09。
Flipper Alloy is asking if I finished the box of Timbits yet. I have not, so here's my box of Timbits, and as you can see, there are still 6 left.
I forgot my car settings were on. That was an interesting experience. Forgot to turn them off.
Ooh, look at you, respawning back on a runway.
Yeah, I know. I thought I had them off, but everything reset on my end since I haven't used the sim in a while. So yeah, shame.
逃がさね
Mailmore asks, what's the best
あ
way
それっぽい
to set a Canadian?
BF109 主力だったかな
debate of some kind.
グスタフですよ
Who's the best hockey player or something like that?
Call the Leafs a competent organization.
だな
The best way to upset a Canadian is call him an American.
Troops.
RF が幅利かせてますぜ
Whoa, hey.
やっつけに行きましょうよ調子に乗ってますよやつら
From a very important person. I'm not even kidding. I'm not making it. I'm holding my phone up. I'll show you this. This is very apropos for a Canada Day stream. I literally just got text by the Prime Minister of Canada.
No kidding.
Really? Look, I don't know if you can read that. Look, it says, "Hi, it's Justin Trudeau." You see that?
You're not being spoofed. That's cool. And so, and how did he know? Is he here in the stream? Is he flying with us?
Yeah, it's a special guest. We've been holding in the back room.
I did see a twin jet go by.
Look at what factual.
グリペン
It's not true though.
Yeah.
Oh.
Where's the
He
button,
got all
Peter?
excited. He was so excited he finished the whole box of Timbits.
My French
ME09 って出るんだミスター・シュミットだな
grade 10 was actually a cousin to the Trudeau family.
グリペンを追っかけてる場合じゃないっしょ
She might have been a cousin to the current prime minister, but I can't remember.
やっぱ早いな
It's appropriate to start talking about Trudeau and the Trudeau family because we're heading into Montreal.
That's right.
And for those who don't know, Pierre Elliott Trudeau is Justin Trudeau's dad, who was also a prime minister, who changed a lot of things in Canada back in the day. And it's interesting
Sorry, I
that
got
two
you
prime
just
ministers in the
for
same
1
family.
second, Howard. Just put a pin in that. We'll come back in a moment. I just wanted to show on my screen behind me. You can see we've got CYUL later. Of course, CYUL is the ICAO designation of what airports? Montreal. But what is that airport? Who is it named after?
Pierre Elliott Trudeau, yeah.
Yeah, Montreal Pierre Trudeau International Airport. CYUL.
早いから全然追いつかね
All right,
え
go ahead. Sorry for
160ノットぐらい出てんの
finishing finish that thought.
No, but that's exactly it. We just talked about the fact that there were two prime ministers in the same family, and the fact that he was coming up to Montreal, and there's actually an airport named after him. And there were plenty more things that he did. I don't have, some type of data in front of me to talk about it all. But back in the day, of course, when we saw all the things that were happening in Canada, it was like this guy was really connected to the rest of the world and the rest of the world leaders, and could speak fluently in both languages, which of course his son can do. Justin Trudeau can also speak fluently in both languages, so he can speak on an international stage. And that was one of the prerequisites of running for prime minister, or in any position in the government, is that bilingualism are two official
もうちょっ
languages
と
that
ス
had
ピ
to
ー
be
ドを
something
落としなさいとい
they
う
could speak and pass before they could even apply for those jobs. Just thought I'd give you that bit of insight.
Yeah, well, and I might be wrong about this.
スピードファイアものんびりしてず
I think
してず
if I
に
remember right,
迎撃に上がった方がいいんじゃないの
Pierre Trudeau, when he became prime
来
minister
て
in
ます
the
よ宿敵
1960s, was one of the first prime ministers
BF109 が
of Canada who was bilingual and could speak both languages fluently. In fact, his predecessor, another famous airport, by the way, named after this person, Lester Pearson, who was prime minister before Trudeau. Lester Pearson famously was unilingual English only, and that actually cost him a lot of support amongst French Canadians because he didn't speak their language. But since Pierre Trudeau in the
Canada.
1960s, every person who
あ
aspires
い
to
な
hold the
細い
office of
畑
prime
です
minister
な
must be able to fluently speak both French and English. It's not a legal requirement. It's not like a law that says you must, but it's like a de facto requirement. It's expected that our leader be able to speak fluently in Canada's law.
And it is a
で
requirement if you
も
want
追
to
っ
work
か
for
け
the
てて
federal
もなか
government.
なかスピードが違って追いつ
That's
き
true,
ませんから
like Moncton, right?
どっかで
Although
なんだっ
it,
け
Moncton
it
and
is
Ottawa.
kind of
隙を
funny
ついて
because
一気に接近しましょう
we have the province of Quebec,
グリペンでも見ますか
majority French speaking.
グリ
And we
太
have the
郎は
province of New Brunswick, which in actual
どんな
fact
リ
is
バ
the
リーで
only
しょうね
province in Canada that is
この飛
officially
行機も
bilingual.
かっこいい飛行機ですよね
If I could add really quickly on a personal note, I'd just to finish off with Pierre Elliott Trudeau, actually.
あ、ウクライナのリバあ、ウクライナのここの持ってないよ
I
ね
guess not
スウェー
founder,
デ
but
ン
someone that
スウ
really
ェーデンは
pushed
違
hard
う
on
な
multiculturalism
ど
level
このリバリー
in
ですかね
Canada,
なんか
and likely
青
the
黄色の
reason why my family and I would
国
assume
籍
have
標
not
識だった
family
みたい
and why
に見
we
えた
are
けど
here as Canadians. I was again personally born here in Montreal, but obviously my family immigrated here, and I believe without Pierre Trudeau's efforts, a lot of that Canadian multiculturalism wouldn't be here today. So
黄色と
Yeah,
obviously a big deal.
that's
Oh,
a
no.
very excellent
国
point.
籍標識
Anyway.
どこの飛行機かわかんないけど
A country built
デジ
by
タル明
immigrants,
細
whether those are immigrants of British or French descent, which is
Spitfire,
the two
Rakta.
founding European nations, or from elsewhere in the world. And right up until the 1960s, when Pierre Trudeau became
おお
prime
壮
minister,
観ですな
Canada basically had a very racist
DHC2
immigration policy, where
Ah, no,
if you were of
違うの。
white European descent, you could
あ、
immigrate
一緒
to
か。
Canada. If you were from anywhere else in the
船
world,
つけてないだ
you
け
could
か
not. And Pierre Trudeau made that far more equitable. And now Canada as a country is actually celebrated as being one of the most opening and diverse countries on the planet. And we have people from all over the world choose to come here and make their living here. Raise families, etc.
Isn't Toronto the most
That is true. Statistically, Toronto has the greatest amount of ethnic
人住んでどこ行っちゃったの
It's really cool. If you ever visit here in Toronto, you guys go on the subway system, and you'll see. And I used to use it every day to go to work and back. And on the subway system, you'll see almost every kind of newspaper back in the newspaper days, or people reading on their tablets or phones. Every kind of language. It's just interesting to see that because you're just looking around, just in one subway car, and realize the diversity we have here in the city, and different pockets of the city. Of course, there's the Little Italy. There's the Asian section, and I'm in the east end of Toronto, in Scarborough, so I'm in the, it's predominantly an Asian section of the city, and it's just wonderful to bring both our boys were brought up in high school with all their friends were everything you can
あれは
think
何
of,
だろう
and that was actually good for them to do that because
塔
they just
のま
accepted their friends
ん
from what they
ど
were.
こだろう
It
な
was a good upbringing for kids.
Although the TTC is a little bit of a mess right now, to be fair, because I've gone on it. I've seen some interesting things on the TTC. So if you do ride the TTC, especially as a tourist, just make sure you know where you're going.
Yeah, the last little while the TTC has been a bit weird.
Exactly, really weird.
And Baron has pointed something out in chat. Those of us who are on the flight plan, if we go to our right,
ね
St. Lawrence is now
外
first
部
water.
視点にす
We
る
have
と
passed
どうしても
the
フ
zone
ラフラフラ
emerging
って
from
も
the ocean.
So the sharks stop here.
Also, there was a comment in chat along with S&P Ottawa that said Wilfrid Laurier was a French speaker, which is true. Sir Wilfrid Laurier was Canada's first prime minister who was a French-speaking prime minister rather than an English-speaking prime minister. A very big deal at the time. And Wilfrid Laurier, if you ever have Canadian currency, his face appears on Canada's $5 banknote.
Oh, you mean the funny money, as the Americans
Well,
tell me.
so
はいだメソチミッ
I
ト
was about to say there is a joke with this, and this is also a Star Trek reference. There you can
ちょっと性能が
vandalize
違
a
いすぎる
Canadian five. This is true, but you can vandalize a Canadian $5 banknote and make Sir Wilfrid Laurier look like Spock. I'll see if I can get a picture of this. This is a classic.
And you're saying this is a
Canadian
legal
bank.
thing, CDO?
No, it is illegal. It is not legal to deface currency. That is that is a federal crime, but people do it anyways. So hang on, let me just pull up. I'll pull up the
ファイヤーを
original
守ってるからだ
$5
と
banknote,
買いに来たのかな
and then I'll show you the Spock version of the $5 banknote.
So while he's doing that, the Ryder you're mentioning about safer to swim, you just wouldn't try it. The St. Lawrence River is clean enough to swim in. I go to Thousand Islands, I sail there from Lake Ontario from Toronto,
一応ちょっとね
and we
虎視
dive
眈
off the
々
boat
と
every morning
伺
and
っ
go
て
swimming. And
一気火星に近づきますか
not sure why you say swim there, but I just firsthand I'm letting
It may
you know.
be down this end.
性能の差
Further
を
down.
工
Montreal side
Past.
is pretty good.
夫で
Okay,
ちょっ
so
と行わ
past,
ないと
past
追いつかないですね
But I've been as far as the Kingston Thousand Islands with my sailboat, and it's crystal clear and it's beautiful. Not
Okay,
as
so
crystal clear as
here we
Virgin Bay,
have
but-
the original Wilfrid Laurier Canada $5 bill, and on the backside you have some children playing hockey and tobogganing, which is a very classic Canadian activity. And then allow me to bring this up.
Are you allowed to bring this up?
見当たらねえな
Yes, I
あ
thought
れ
it was
どこ行っちゃ
illegal.
った外れ
But
た
there's
か
an image somewhere.
Here
Well, it's
is
only
a-
illegal to do it,
Here
not
is a
showing
Canadian $5 banknote that some person has vandalized to make Wilfrid Laurier look like Spock.
スピードファイヤーいたあれあさっきと違う人だあれ
It is long.
ゆっくり飛んでないかな
There's a dark star on my tail, CD.
Uh-oh.
Is there really?
よっしゃ
You should be worried.
ルフト
How is he staying?
ルフトワフェですだなちょっと迎撃しないとダメじゃないですか RAF としては
I don't know if CDL. I don't know if everybody knows how our two parties were formed even before Canada was formed. Back in the days of the British colony that started in York. Right? I mean, those are things we learn in
牙を
school,
抜かれちまっ
and
た
then
ぜ
and then we tell our children about it. You know, we have in Canada we have two main parties, and those two main parties are red and blue. And how did those colors come about? They're actually opposite colors to what the U.S. system has. The red and blue, conservatives versus liberals. And here in Canada, I mean, it was back in the day when this was a British colony here, where I am in Toronto, and the farmers were further out, and the churchgoers were the ones that were closer to, you know, the colony itself. And the farmers had to supply produce and all their goods, you know, obviously into the colony and into the people who needed it. But they had to go around the churches and go through the church properties. And so they started this rebellion. It actually started in Eglinton back in the day. And they started this rebellion, and they came down Yonge Street, which is the longest street in the world. And it's the main street of Toronto. They came down there with pitchforks. Farmers, they didn't have guns, but they had pitchforks. And they came down and started this big, huge rebellion. A lot of bloodshed, a lot of, you know, big, huge rebellion. And they continued on until the point where they were allowed to bring
BF108 がおらん
and,
のそれ
and of course, the two different parties became, the red party became the farmers, the liberals, the farmers, because of all the bloodshed. Red was their color. And then the blue because of the royalty, the British colony people. So they used the color blue to, you know, to show royalty. And that's where the two parties started way back then. The farmers for the people and the blue party is, of course, for the businesses in the colony. That's where it
到
started.
底追いつきます
Kind of interesting.
だいぶかすんで
Really
きた
interesting point here from Canoehead says you're flying over the singing areas of Quebec. So we're yeah. So if you look on my screen here, look at the farmland below. If you fly fly over farmland in most other regions of the world, the plots of land are all rectangular, sorry, square-shaped. They're like the width and length.
あそこにいるのに
Nice, even squares. Here in Quebec, though, it's interesting.
Boy.
They're really long, thin rectangles.
これが
You
性
see
能
a
の
lot of
違い
land, a couple different crops, different colors. They're all these long, thin rectangles. And the reason for that, and I remember learning about this in social studies class in like grade 8 or something. It's because of the irrigation from the river. That's exactly right. The way that the land was allotted, the English magistrates in English-speaking Canada did it the traditional way with square plots of land, and the French magistrates, the seigneurs, they did it differently. They gave each farmer this long, thin plot, so everyone had access to the river. And so they had a water source for their crops. Whereas if you can imagine, if you had a square plot, but you were 3 or 4 plots inland, you wouldn't have access to the river. Whereas here are these long thin strips. They can all have a water source, which is very interesting.
And we have it too. I think in the Netherlands too, right? Yeah, we have it. Yeah, the same.
But that's usually that's the peat fields.
Bogota says Louisiana is the same along this. Yeah, and that makes sense because of course there's a long French history.
ああまだそうそうした
That's why Montreal and Quebec are so close to the river, because back in the day, the access to the river was pivotal for trade, cargo,
Right.
water, just anything needed was by the river. So that's why Montreal is found so close to St. Lawrence and St. Quebec City. So it makes sense.
So another
Seems like
interesting
I-Fast POI. So over to there.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Switch over to your POVs. Oh, look at that. This is in Trois-Rivières. Or if you want to sound like an Anglo, 3 rivers.
You want to sound like an Anglo. Don't do it well. See.
I think most Canadians would probably
Yeah.
still call it Trois-Rivières.
くー
Can we head to says my fellow Acadians in Louisiana? Yes, that is true. And the Acadian is a slur on
どっか人知れず戦っているのかもな P38 も P38 もいたし
a place, an area here in Nova Scotia.
わさら
The uh, western end of
お
the
だ
Annapolis
いぶ
Valley.
かすんできて何も見えねえな
The British took over control of what is now Nova Scotia. They didn't like having the French population, so they shipped them all out, and a lot of them ended up in Louisiana. So that's where Cajun comes from.
It's an event in Canadian history called the deportation. There are hundreds of thousands, but tens of thousands of French Acadian settlers in what is now present-day Nova Scotia were forcibly deported and sent to Louisiana against their will.
That's where the phrase, the term Cajun comes from. It's a slur on
やっぱり
Acadian.
今日
So I do think this is very interesting. We're talking about the thin plots of land. Like this is something I learned in history class as a junior high student 30 years ago. And it's really interesting to actually be able to see this in Microsoft Flight Simulator from the air. Look at these long, thin strips of farmland. And to make that connection. Like, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense. Now the land was allotted back in the 1700s.
プリペ
Talk about the capital city of Ottawa for a moment.
大空に生えますな
It was not. In 1867, when Canada became a sovereign independent nation, Ottawa was not a major city. It was called Bytown at the time. It wasn't even called Ottawa. And very few people lived there. It was not a major settlement at all. So why was it chosen to be Canada's capital city?
Toronto didn't want it anymore.
Well, so that was the big dilemma. Canada as a nation, at least not talking about our First Nations population, but our European colonizer population, it's always been sort of a compromise between the English portion of Canada and the French portion of Canada, and that's exactly what happened with Ottawa being selected as the capital city. English Canada wanted what is now Toronto, what was then known as York, which was the biggest English settlement in the country, to be the capital. And the French part of Canada wanted Montreal, which is the biggest French-speaking city in the country, to be the capital city. And so Queen Victoria, of all people, in a great compromise, chose this tiny town that was, again, at the time known as Bytown, and decided, and it was right on the border of Ontario and Quebec, which is significant. It was literally directly on the border between Quebec and Ontario, and that was sort of the great compromise. This border town was chosen to be Canada's capital city.
Just past a container ship heading upriver. A Costco, not a Costco, just a Costco. C-O-S-C-O.
Yeah, very, very famous shipping line. Yeah.
Also, yeah, I see it in chat. If anyone's flying with real weather, yeah.
絶対履いてないけど同じリバリーか。
I think Toronto had the worst air quality in the world. Like,
あ、もうピヨピヨ言ってる。そんな時間か。
Montreal, yeah. So, if you guys, well, we obviously
わかったわかった。
people on the panel will
わか
find
りました。
custom weather, but if you are watching,
了解で
you
ご
would
ざい
like
ま
to
す。
see it, I think you could pretty much
ち
see
ょ
in
っ
the
と
same
どっかで
live weather. They'll be going further and further in the snow as we get closer to
泊ま
Montreal.
り太郎
It's
して。
live weather too, and it's hazily layer
Yes,
indeed
yeah.
visible. Some climbing.
Well,
on
I actually had a DM through Discord the other night from one of Howard's other moderators.
ダイヤモンドエアクラフト。
He lives in Denmark, and the smoke from the northern Ontario Quebec fires were almost getting to the point where he said probably tomorrow I'll be able to smell it.
All the way to Denmark. Isn't that amazing? There's certainly a lot of my U.S. friends are talking about how those darn Canadians. all those forest fires are out of control, and it's affecting a lot of the northern U.S. states. So
Well, so the interesting thing with the forest fires
では
and
一
how
旦停止。
Canada largely
Alpha Sierra
did
X-ray
this-
Golf
Sierra
Sierra,
X-ray
wind
Golf
speed
Sierra
307 miles south of Charlie Sierra Juliet, 500 feet.
and to
Request
satisfy
flight following.
this law
聞い
in
た。
Canada
びっ
that
くり
it
した。あ
had
ん
to
なにたくさん飛んどるん
X
だ
amount of minutes of distinctly Canadian content, and that became by far the most popular segment on the show.
it did, and the fact was that they had lived.
Everybody remembers Bob and Doug.
And it was all ad libbed, guys. I mean, even right down to the tune, they said, what kind of props do you need? And they just started
おしゃべ
rhyming
り
things
して
that
る暇が
off
ない
the
の
top of
だ
their。head. Well, we're definitely going to need some
あ、
tubes.
さっきのメ
You
ッセ
know,
ージ見
we're
て
in
た。
Canada. And you know, they just threw stuff together back in those days. They didn't plan a lot. They didn't have big budgets, and they just went with it. And they didn't realize what they'd started.
Extra X-ray Golf Sierra,
Really?
acknowledge last transmission.
And you get to hear them every year at Christmas.
Absolutely.
Bob and Doug
しゃべり始めるうるさいからちょっと知らねえ。あっちに
So
飛べ
an
とかこっちに飛べとか言うから。
sideline note on that, if I can mention it in CDL. When we are in,
Extra
we go
X-ray
down
Golf
to Florida
Sierra,
to
did you hear my
try to
last
stick winter,
transmission?
and Americans say to us, you know, what's your names? And my wife's name is Elaine, and my
Squawk
name's Howard.
021 tree,
And we say,
あ、
extra
またこ
X-ray
れ
Golf
四
Sierra.
国がどうこうとかって言ったら、時期こっちに。
Extra X-ray Golf Sierra radar contact, 9 miles south of Charlie Sierra
And we just say
Juliet,
EA, and they
42,400 feet.
never forget our names. I forget everybody's names. They never forget ours because, well, they're Canadian, eh? And it's just a little memory.
Montreal Center, extra X-ray Golf Sierra. Say again, please.
Extra X-ray Golf
No,
Sierra radar
Rash, you have
contact,
a
9
book
miles south
full
of
of
Charlie Sierra
Canadianisms.
Juliet,
Is there something in there you
1,600 feet.
Share with us.
Altimeter
Something you read
30.03.
that you found was outrageous or funny.
There are some.
There are some. How thick is that book? I couldn't believe how much stuff is in there.
Well,
It's all
I can't
Canadian.
even read them on screen.
Yes, that's true.
ファ
I
ン
actually
じゃ
brought
な
mine
い。
down to the studio. I looked for it. It's here somewhere.
Yeah, I'm basically
はい、
like
さよなら。
waiting to one of the appropriate ones comes up, something related to the
なる
conversation.
ほど。
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
hang on.
That's
you
one
can
way to do it.
I may pronounce your name improperly here. GBAMH in chat is going to start a war.
Good day.
There is only one. Yeah, there is only one correct answer to this. Which Canadian province has the best? Yes, it's Quebec. It's anyone who says it's not Quebec just has no idea what they're talking about.
Wait a minute. No, I'm just kidding.
What?
There's some interesting reads, you guys. Canadian disasters. Which, of course, Halifax is in there, Andrew.
ウィルキャットが
But
追っ
this
かけ
is,
て
you
く
know,
る。
this book here, this, Canadian Dictionary of Canadianisms, How to Speak Canadian A, right on the byline. And it's just packed, as you can see, how thick this thing is. And it's just unbelievable how much stuff is in there. You heard earlier CDL mentioned the double-double.
あ、
Seems
ヘ
to
ル
be
キャットが
unique
絡みに
in
行った。
Canada. You walk into a Tim's, you say, I take a double double. They know what that means. It's double milk and double sugar. And it's just a common thing that a lot of us will do. But there's a ton of stuff
火
in
星
here.
に行けよ
You
な。
know, there was a couple things I did want to talk about,
行
but
け
I
よ
never
な
did.
とかね、仲間の。あれがいる。
It's just
Oh.
fascinating reading.
Now, Criminal Pilots has a more nuanced question here. Who has the best Montreal smoked meat sandwich? Now, the obvious answer is Schwartz's Deli in Montreal. That's what everyone's going to say. Not necessarily the case.
My wife would throw the St. Pietro bagel place because she loves their smoked meat on.
あ、スピットファイヤー。危ねえ。スピットファイヤーを。
So, when I lived in Calgary, believe it or not, Calgary of all places had a Montreal smoked meat deli right outside my front door. It was basically the same distance as we walked. And walked to get a Montreal smoked meat sandwich in Calgary. And it was the best I ever had. They imported their pastrami from Montreal, and I think the proprietor of that deli was a Montreal native, but he moved to Calgary and opened up a deli there, and boy did he do it right. So that's the best I've ever had. And I've been to Montreal. I've had Montreal smoked meat sandwiches in Montreal. So I like to think I know what I'm talking about here.
Have you been to Schwartz though?
Oh yeah, I've been to all the classic ones.
Yeah, because I think, in my opinion, Schwartz is the best. Like that's like it's a really classic, very famous place. I'm sure a lot of people have been there, but that's my personal favorite.
スピットファイヤーいける。
Who knows what cow juice is?
Cow juice?
Milk.
That's easy.
And milk?
That's milk.
That's milk.
行くで、これコードを稼いでおくで。
Yeah.
So, earlier in chat, someone mentioned when we were talking about the blueberry run, Arash, someone mentioned that it was something to do with dumplings or dumpling-like topping. That's actually called blueberry grunt, believe it or not, in Canada. And it's a maritime dessert of cooked blueberries with a dumpling-like topping.
これも
It came from the sound made by the concoction as it boils away in
180
the
ノットぐらい
saucepan.
出るともうガタガタし始めるからな、この飛行機。ゼロ戦を出してくれ。
So see the things we got to try now since this stream.
ここでチーズしてんのに
I don't know if you've
絡
talked
め
about
ね
maple syrup yet.
Oh, we mentioned it once, but yummy.
90% of the maple syrup in the world.
あれスピットファイヤーがおらんくなった
They have a strip.
Well, I
They
think
have
Northern
a
Ontario too, right?
no. It comes from Quebec.
どうした
They,
あれ
the province of Quebec has a strategic reserve of maple syrup. Like speaking of Mabel, you could check me on this. It's
あ、もうおら
something
んくなった
upwards of like 95,000 liters
エリアから離れた
stored in case of emergencies.
What's an emergency?
Wasn't there a bunch stolen too? Like there was one
Yep.
time where they stole a
Yes,
ton. Like
Brad has actually commented on how the great maple syrup heist.
The great
is.
maple syrup heist. Yeah.
Andrew is not joking, by the way. Canada legitimately has a strategic maple syrup reserve. This is a
Isn't
true
that
thing.
well? But I've just wanted to find what is an emergency with maple syrup.
When you run out.
I guess, yeah.
At
you run
least-
out,
at
you
least
gotta
in
have
Canada,
something,
so-
yeah. We're having a shortage of maple syrup in Canada. There was a run on the syrup manufacturers.
Because you said that 95% of the maple syrup is manufactured in Canada, but I reckon that 90% of the maple syrup
これ何の塊だ
consumed in Canada.
Probably, yeah. But it's definitely souvenir stuff too.
I
At the
always
airport
have.
here, you'll see maple syrup with a Canadian flag.
I always have maple syrup and here at home. And we actually did pancakes over the weekend, and I was looking at the back of the maple syrup tin as I was finishing up my pancakes, and I went, okay, well, we're not buying these guys anymore.
Because it was
They had sugar in it.
well, they put sugar in the maple syrup.
It's like, guys, it's maple syrup.
It's
It's
sugar.
sugar with water. Why
It's
would
already the sweetest thing you've ever had in your
That's
life.
right. So
yeah, why would you put sugar in it?
So
That's
as
silly.
kids, you guys were talking about field trips, going to different places. As kids, we did a field trip to, and my wife's a school teacher. They always, every year, took the kids to a field trip to a maple syrup place here in Ontario, and they would actually take maple syrup right from the cans from the trees.
ああ、
and
ま
sprinkle
た
it on
大
the
隊
snow,
長
and it
の
would
戻ると
immediately
こに
freeze,
戻っ
and
て
the
き
kids
ちゃっ
would
た
pick it up and eat it like an icicle,
Maple candy.
maple candy. And then they would go and watch how it gets boiled, and then they would all get a sample to take home. We all learned about it from
There's somebody in chat just Eaglewood Online said Aunt Jemima.
Aunt Jemima. Yeah, they
Now,
just changed that
that's-
label recently.
Yeah, that's not maple anything. That's maple flavor.
That's brown sugar oiled with sugar added. So no, it's not good for you. It's not maple syrup. Now, you
yes,
guys,
there was
you
a
might,
maple syrup heist a while back.
yeah, the big heist. So this is something a lot of people may not know. There's something called
ゼロ戦欲しいな。作ってくれん
and
か
it's
な。
a type of liquid diet that a lot of people do for cleansing. So it's a cleansing
BF109
diet.
作ったら
And it's
次は
really based with you have to
も
have
う
make
何
sure
があ
that
る
it's
っけまだ
grade medium,
P47 とか有
maple
名
syrup,
どこ
or
ろで
grade A,
作
which
っ
has
て
the
ない
most
のがあるから
nutrients,
な。
and some sweet lemon and some green pepper, and people live on that. Believe it or not, they live on that for literally months until they drop their excess weight. They're huge. You know, these are people that are in trouble. And they will do that to cleanse themselves for a 10-day cleanse, or they'll do that for weight loss for a month or two. And it's based on Canadian maple syrup, and it has to be, of course, grade A, medium, or the thicker ones that have the most nutrients. And your body actually lives on that. And you mix it with water, of course. You don't drink that full strong. And it's a surprise that actually can keep people alive for 30 to 60 days. They could go longer, but they say it's probably unhealthy.
フェルキャット、コルセアがあれ
But
ば
that's just a
まあ、
fascinating stat that
米海軍はいいじゃろ。米空軍、ムスタング、
Yeah, the wet
ホ
chef.
ー
Yeah, that's
ク、
probably
まだ
true.
コブラもあるし。
Sugar and then use more maple syrup to get the same sweetness.
Yeah, because the stuff that comes out of the trees is very liquidy, very diluted. I mean, they have to boil it. They use big vats of boiling it down to the point where it's the consistency.
I'm not. Somebody else just asked that in the chat. I'm not 100%, but I believe it's actually
うわ、ピカピカじゃ眩しい。
sap to make 1 gallon of syrup.
And Brad says if you have a sore throat, straight maple syrup, just tip the bottle right.
あ、あれか。C160 持ってね。
Better than Buckley's,
輸
right?
送機だな。
Yeah. There's another Canadianism. I just switched over to Peter's point of view. Peter, I want to bring you
どこにいるんじゃ。
from the Netherlands. Are you familiar? We're going to Ottawa today. Are you familiar with the city of Ottawa's connection to the country of the Netherlands? Why every year the government of the Netherlands
久しぶりと。
thousands of tulips to Ottawa for the Ottawa's annual tulip festival. You know how that tradition started?
Wasn't that because during the Second World War there was some kind of squadron from Canada?
Yeah, well, there's
immensely.
There's two distinct events. Both happened during the Second World War. So when Nazi Germany occupied the Netherlands, the Dutch royal family fled to Canada and lived in exile in Ottawa. And the Princess Margaret, I think, was pregnant at the time. And according to Dutch law, you cannot be the royal ruler of the Netherlands if you were born on foreign soil. And so what the Canadian government did, they temporarily made the maternity ward at the Ottawa hospital. There's an urban legend that they say they ceded that territory to the Netherlands. That's actually not true. Instead, what they did is they made the maternity ward non-Canadian territory. It's basically like being born in international waters, except it was in the middle of Ottawa. And therefore, I believe it was Princess Margaret, she gave birth to her daughter, I think, and she was then able to become the queen of the Netherlands because she was not born on foreign soil. And then the other reason, as the Reuters said, is also when the Western Allied forces were liberating France, Belgium, the Netherlands, etc., from the fascists in Nazi Germany. Specifically, the country of the Netherlands was largely liberated mostly by Canadian soldiers. And so for those two reasons, there's a very strong connection to this day, between Canada and the Netherlands. And then every year, the Dutch government donates thousands of tulips, great beautiful flowers, very famous from the Netherlands, to Ottawa. And every summer, Ottawa has a tulip festival. And if you ever have a chance to see it, I highly recommend it. Definitely worth checking out.
And here in Halifax, we do something similar, but in the other direction.
Oh, with the Christmas tree to Boston.
With the Christmas tree to Boston, yeah.
Yeah, right. So why don't you tell that story, Andrew?
Well, 1917, two ships collided in narrows between the Medford Basin and the main harbor in Halifax.
Now, when you say two ships collided, it's worth pointing out each ship was doing about 2 knots.
Yeah,
This was not a high-speed collision at all.
One of them was actually carrying an ammunition to Europe for the war effort, and it caught fire because of this collision between the two ships. So it generated a lot of sparks, and the crew abandoned. It drifted ashore and exploded, laid waste to a large portion of what currently be Halifax, and started a lot of fires. You know, it killed a fair number of people, but Halifax wasn't as big then as it is now. And the next day, we had a major blizzard.
Yeah.
And the city of Boston sent a lot of people up by train to help in the medical issues and rescue and all that kind of stuff to Halifax the next day, because we had this major explosion followed by a major blizzard, and we have done it every year since. Canada, City of Halifax will get a large Christmas tree, and we will ship it down to the City of Boston. They put it up and decorate it for the Christmas season, and we still do it today.
Yeah, it's a tradition that's been happening for over 100 years.
I have Stan Olympique in my sights.
Okay. Switch over to Maple Ace POV.
Yeah, I was going to show you a picture of that, you guys. It's in this book called Canadian Disasters, and it shows a black and white picture of the snowfall after the disaster, like the next morning. So they couldn't dig out as fast as they wanted to. But it's in that book called Canadian Disasters.
Yeah, see, a few people in chat have mentioned that the Halifax explosion in 1917 until the first atomic bomb test in Trinity, New Mexico, which if you see the upcoming film Oppenheimer, I'm sure I'll be showing in that film, until that atomic bomb test explosion, the Halifax explosion was the largest man-made explosion in history. And yeah, it happened in Halifax Harbor. It was absolutely devastating to the city.
I'm on top of the building that Maple is showing. So close view.
So this is Stade Olympique, or Olympic Stadium, built for the 1976 Summer Olympic Games.
F and chat for the expos, by the way, please.
Yes,
F
and
and
chat
for the expos. We miss them every day. Yeah. Big F. I mean, there was a plan actually to bring the Tampa Bay race to Montreal. I believe it was like a 50-50 split between Tampa and Montreal, and that actually fell through, I believe, last year. Montreal was close to getting a baseball team back, but actually never ended up transpiring because of the MLB saying no to the plan.
Yeah, so here is Stade Olympique in Montreal. This was the site of the opening ceremonies and most of the track and field events. The 1976 Summer Olympic Games.
そらヨーロッパではちょっとクリケットはあれでしょう。なんだったっけ？
And we won't tell anybody that's falling.
でもヨーロッパでも戦ったんだっけ？ヘルキャット。
There was a lot of corruption that went on in the construction of this building, and it was not built to very high quality standards. Now almost years old and falling to pieces.
マートレット。
The infrastructure is correct, it's all corrupt, though. I mean, if anyone has been to Montreal, you know how bad the construction is. Construction all over the place, all day, every day, every time you go through Montreal, there's something going on where they're tearing it apart, building up again. You just don't know for what reason. It takes ages to complete. I mean, Toronto's a little bit of the same, but Montreal is very, very bad. The infrastructure, everything is just, it's a mix of corruption and incompetence, and the bad winters make the roads, you know, full of potholes. Yeah.
The winters really happen.
It does, yeah.
Every time.
So here's a joke for both Maple A and Porter, being from Toronto and Montreal, respectively. What is the difference between a driver in Toronto and a driver in Montreal?
One speaks English and one speaks French.
In Toronto, the
完
drivers
全に
can
射
turn
撃
right
し
on
ちゃ
a
う射
red
撃
light.
してあ
In
そう
Montreal,
かヘルキャットとあれしてヘルキャットを追っかけてる
Oh wow.
漁夫の漁へ
Right on
い
red
る
in Montreal. That's a true fact. That's something I did not know. You cannot go right on red. Also, I'm currently flying over the Jacques Cartier Bridge, one of the oldest. I mean, Montreal's known for the bridges. There's the Pont Victoria.
あ BF109 もヘルキャットもゼロ戦じゃ全然追いつけないけどね
Yeah, Pont Champlain, but
追い
that's
つけない
that
敵
one
を
was
撃墜す
actually
るのは
built
無理なんやよな
Currently, I'm over La Ronde as well, which is a famous Six Flag place in Montreal. And right around here is also the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, which is where the Formula One race is held every year. It's right here. There's the famous chicane where the cars go by.
なんかえらい
You're also flying over an
なんかお
artificial
城がいっ
island
ぱいある
in
ところに行きそうな感じだったけどな
The
今日
metro, actually, the Montreal
お城
metro
だ
goes
か
through
なんかわかんないけど
underwater
結
over
構あれ
to
のあると
Argent
ころ
Drapeau,
に
which is again where that track is. So
あれってあ
the
の
metro
あ
system
れ
in Montreal
ランド
obviously
マー
is
ク
pretty big, and there's the yellow line. That's
お
the one that
こ
will
の
take
子
you
現れ
here.
てきた
Will fly right. It will go right underwater and bring you over to Argent Drapeau, which is this artificial island.
しか
See
しも
what's,
ヘルキャットなら
talking about, and there's
この
Pont
後ろ
Victoria.
に疲れることはないと思うけ
That
どね
actually collapsed
109
a
の
few, I think a few times.
くるくる回ってればヘルキャッ
It's
トの方が
fully
強いと
made
思う
of,
けど
I believe, metal. So when you go over it, it makes a lot of noise. It's not asphalt. It's all out of steel and metal. So that's another
スピットファイヤーはなぜ
bridge, and the trains also
絡まり門絡
right
ま
on
り
the
しに
bridge.
来
So
ない
when the train goes by and you're there, it's pretty loud.
Cool.
Do you have Habitat 67? That should be somewhere around you. People, do you have that insight? 'Cause that's a really interesting.
I
building.
have it
Yeah.
here.
あーっとヘルキャット
I'll
I
look
think
for it, though.
this is the one.
やられそうだ後ろから
Yes, that is.
逃げる
it.
Yeah, the last time my wife was to Montreal, she wanted to go to the biodome.
ちょっ
and
と
she
のが
couldn't
曲
make
が
it
る
the
と
day
思
she
うん
was
だよ
there.
ねで
So what Tim Tom is showing us now, this is Habitat
深追いはし
67.
ない
This was a very, at the time, considered a very modern
今何スピンしとったん
architectural
じゃない
project. I believe it
そう
was
そういう軌道か
designed
ね
as a graduate thesis project. I have to look it up. I can't remember the name of the architect. But he also did Marina Bay Sands in Singapore, among some very famous buildings. And Chad, I'm sure, knows the name of this architect.
まっすぐ飛
You
ば
know,
れ
you
る
know what it reminds me of?
燃料は大丈夫燃料もそろそろあれだなあ
Yes,
あここら辺
that's
か
not
な
by
I was
coincidence.
gonna say it's not unusual anymore. 'Cause that's a thing to
もう
do now.
聞いたのにな
Just to build your houses out of shipping
BF109
containers.
Moshe Safdie was the architect. Of course, he's now gone on to
I'm
great
not
works all over the
Hellcat
world.
to
Again,
Thomas
Marina Bay
Sodaki.
Sands might be his most famous building. Very,
スピットファ
very
イヤー
famous
スピ
building
ッ
in
トファイ
Singapore.
ヤーに乗る
But this was
の
one of his
もな
earlier projects. It was his master's thesis when he was an architectural student at McGill
一応
University here in Montreal.
BF109 同盟国で
And
す
it
からな
opened in 1967, hence the name Habitat 67. And the idea was to build a high-density housing complex where lots of people could live. But it was designed in such a way that every person had a private balcony or terrace, and you could not see anyone else's balcony from yours, and vice versa. Yeah, as Whiskey Canucks there says in the chat, one of the designs was the look of it was every apartment would have open sky over its balcony.
ちょっと視野も近い
Red
So it's,
Baron
again, it's
chat.
designed to be the high
なん
density,
か
so a
あ
lot of
こら
people
辺か
could
いっ
live,
ぱ
but
い
also
あれ
you
があ
have
る
a sense
の
of privacy as
ラ
well.
ンドマークがカナダの
Red Baron and Chad dare me to do a lap of the circuit. Gilles Villeneuve, so I'm do my best, but no guarantees. Try my best though.
So anyway, yeah, Habitat 67 opened in 1967, and you can buy homes there. Like you can live there today if you want. They're private dwellings, and they're pretty
カナダの
expensive.
国旗が
It's
つ
a very
いてる
unique building to live in.
カ
A
ナ
very
ダ
famous building. But if you're
Canadian
wealthy and live in
Rookie.
Montreal, you can buy a condo and live full time in Habitat 67.
あれまたおらんくなった
All right, going over to Maple A's screen, we're going to do a
Yeah, I
circuit
think I
of
passed it already.
Circuit Gilles Villeneuve.
Oh, actually, I just stalled out. Never mind. Hold on, let me save
だってき
that.
たおなんかすごいいっぱい
Bestie at
Oh,
the Chingo.
F's in the chat.
Don't look, don't
Chingo?
look, don't look, don't look. I tried to do the chicane where the cars go really slow with the plane, and that
いや
didn't
ど
work.
っちも
And I got
してな
shot
い
to
気
get
が
the
する
salmon nosedive. I'm not done this in
Ah,
minutes, so.
燃料もあんたにするの忘れとるがね
Rand
Yeah,
Rand
very
says
good.
sorry, eh?
Sorry, A.
No, it's just-
ちょっとここら辺の
It's good, Red.
ちょっと霞がかりたる
Don't drive a Formula
Where's
One
the truck
track
go?
with
ランドマーキング
No,
を
Montreal.
Montreal, where we are now, second largest city in Canada by population, largest city in Quebec, although not the capital city of Quebec, that's Quebec City where we departed from earlier.
オリンピックスタジアムなんちゅ
That's
う
correct.
街じゃい
Pierre Elliott Trudeau International Airport.
モントリオールだ。あ、そうか、モントリオールオリンピックって大昔にあったな、そういや。
Montreal also has the second major airport, Mirabel. But if you're speaking of government boondoggles, look up the history of Mirabel Airport
モ
sometime.
ントリオールってのは聞いたことがある街だぞ。
One thing I forgot earlier to mention.
Is that a Canadianism, CDL? It's a boondoggle?
Is boondoggle, is that a Canadian term? I don't know.
It sounds
is
like
that
it,
used
doesn't it?
internationally?
I'm not sure, but it sounds like it.
モントリオ
So if
ー
anyone in
ル。あの
chat
人らあれじゃん。
wants to challenge, I dare you to land on the Pont
なん
Champlain.
か変わった建
Can't
物
land
じゃんな、
on
こりゃ。
Jacques Cartier or Pont Victoria because of the way they're built, but Pont Champlain is currently it's the last bridge. You'll see there's 3 bridges. It's the furthest one, and
オリン
that
ピ
one try
ッ
and
ク
land
ス
on.
いや
So good
Is
luck
this,
to anyone.
Maybe is that Pont Champlain in sight?
Yes, yeah, I believe
Where
so.
UCOG is, kind of?
Yeah, I'm right, almost right above it. That's that.
This one
ー
here
ア
is
クロ
Pont
バット
Champlain.
隊の隊長じゃないあ
I'm
れ。
trying to look. Your stream's a bit behind.
イエー
Right
イ
under you, I think that is the one you're circling, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
あとスクリーンショットの人。
So that one connects the city of
Yoo-hoo.
Montreal, Nuns Island, which is actually where I went to school.
なんだこの
That's
空中に浮いてる
that connects Nuns Island
不思議ワールド
to
は。
the South Shore. And what you guys will also see as you
なんだ
go
あれ
by
読んで
there's
な
a
いだけ
smaller
か
bridge if you're going to the right of it, and that's actually the bike lane. That's yeah, on my stream, this right here. It's nice that they have it in the sim. That's the bike lane. So if you want to bike or walk across
あ、これ
the river
極
over
飛
to
行
the
隊の
South
隊長だ
Shore,
と思いま
you
す。
can.
日本極飛行連盟の。
They, I believe, they did
なん
not
ていうの
remake
か
that
知らない
one. The
けど。
bridge has been rebuilt, and the old one torn down because it's in really bad condition. So,
I'm kind of running out of runway here. I'm not touching down yet.
同じ飛行機だけど、ちょっとあれは違いそうですな。
Yeah, what
リバー
Nice shallow.
Okay, now I touched.
I won't try to land on Pont Champlain, but I will try to fly underneath it.
it is very narrow, so good luck.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at the gap, the spans right now.
It's actually funny, the old bridge is still in the photogrammetry, so if you go by the bridge, the new one's actually like in the sense of a POI, but the green tops of the bridge are actually like submerged in the water, so it's actually pretty cool. As you can see, the remnants of the old ones still somehow embedded.
またなんか変なことやる。
Speaking of bridges, I forgot to mention earlier when you were
Look
flying
at
over
that.
the Quebec Bridge at the beginning of the flight.
Yeah. なんか
For
変な
anyone
アクロバット
who
の技。
graduates from engineering schools in Canada, at the end they give you an iron ring,
ちょっちゃい。
which was traditionally built from a collapsed bridge right at the same site. So if you see,
The rebuilt bridge,
yeah, they were basically it was like engineering error. So it became a tradition and it's still going. So they give you this iron ring and you wear it on your writing hand's pinky finger. Because when you're drawing or you're designing or whatever you're doing in the engineering field, it hits your table and it makes a sound as a reminder of your responsibilities.
That's right.
Successfully landed on Pont Champlain, although my plane doesn't really like it, but it's doable. So I'd like to try.
All right. Well, I'm lined up now. I'm going to attempt to fly underneath Pont Champlain.
やっとつけた。
Yeah, the engineering thing too. There's a hook in there to systems engineers, as we used to call ourselves. When we got our certification at Microsoft, we were called MCSEs, Microsoft Certified Systems Engineers. And we would engineer servers and whole networks and for whole companies, all the big companies. And I taught a lot of those certification
隊
courses.
長は
Well,
日
at
本
some
人部
point,
隊
the
に
Canadian engineers of the world said there's no way that these guys should be calling themselves engineers.
エスコ
So
ート
they
さ
had to
れている
actually
のを
change
ご
the
存
name
知
of
でしょ
our
うか。うわーなんか
certification.
怖え。
And now we're known as
バロッ
Microsoft
クになってる。
Certified Systems Experts. So we could still keep the same acronym and we could could still keep the same certificates. We just couldn't call ourselves engineers anymore. So that was
So
an
when I was
interesting
an
story.
undergrad student taking computer science at university, my university had an upper year computer science course called software engineering.
ビビる大
And
き
the math and computer
い。
science department received a cease and desist
あ、下くぐ
letter
る隊長。
Oh, by the way, I don't know.
隊長ともあろうものが
Get
下を
your
く
F's
ぐ
and
る
chat
とは。
ready, folks.
どういうこ
Stay on
と
CDL screen.
This is looking bad. This is looking
開けた。
Lower, higher, higher. Pull up. Go down. Pull up.
Oh, I did it. Oh, I
It does
didn't think I
not
could pull
look
it.
なんか楽しそうじゃん。
pull up
Odds
right
are,
away afterwards.
3,720 to 1. Someone in chat will get that reference. But yeah, so my university got a cease and desist letter from the Canadian
Oh,
Society of
yeah.
Engineers
Yo, someone
saying
stood
that they
there.
were not allowed to have a class in the computer science department called software engineering because they did not consider it to be actual engineering.
I think that has changed though right now because yeah, like in my school they combined electrical engineering and computer engineering together, so you can be a software
く
engineer
ー
officially.
BF109 が。
It's really the
ほら、
definition
お
of
誘う。
engineer itself. I mean, they had the title, of course, for those who build mechanical structures and bridges and stuff.
モン
The
ト
fact
リ
that we engineer
オー。
solutions that now with software or with servers or with networks, it still was.
背面飛行してる。
Use that term, but I can see now that people are getting more reasonable about it.
I'm going to get back on the track and start heading towards Ottawa. Maple A, a subject very near and dear to you. Can you give us a flyover of the Bell Center before we depart Montreal?
Oh, I'll turn it around, sure. Yeah. I'll find it and I'll let you know.
And so, while he's doing that, Maple A, is that with an EH at the end?
That's, that's one of my usual things. So yeah, I like that play on my really
Play
like
on
that.
Maple A? Perfect.
すげえいっぱいあれがあるけど。
You might want to firewall it because we still
ラ
have
ンドマーク
74
が。
nautical miles to
大全体なんじゃろこれは。
It's fine. Yeah, I was taking it easy too, and then I realized everybody's firewalling it, so I'll just live up to my name.
これは何の
Well, we had
街
a
じゃ。
lot of scenery this year today. It's like three major Canadian cities: Quebec City, Montreal, and Ottawa. To check out. So we may go a little bit late today, but it's fine.
Fine. So what's the next waypoint?
After Pierre Trudeau International, we're heading. I think there's a POI
あれが
on
読み
route,
込めてない
and
感じ。
then we'll be heading to Ottawa.
あでも結構綺麗に出てるな。そうか。
Okay, wait for me.
あ、何
Charlie Yankee Oscar Whiskey is the Ottawa.
チャーリーヤンキー
CO
CY?
on the Ottawa River.
Donald
Oscar
Scartier
Whiskey 地下 W か。
International Airport.
And I was just on the Ottawa River not long ago when I went up to visit my brother, who lives in Pembroke, which is right near the Petawawa Army
お
base.
う
He's
おーなんだこの
veteran
丸い
of
の。
the Canadian Armed Forces, and he's spent
面
a
白い
few
もんが
tours of duty
やっぱり
overseas and saw battle.
ランドマー
He
クだけ
now
のこ
resides
と
in
はあら
Pembroke,
ん
so
の。
it's quite a drive.
あ、オリンピッ
It
ク
was-
な
I
んとか
drove
さっ
this
き見
time.
た
I
と
usually
こか。
fly, but
お
this
こ
time
の
I
橋
drove
は
all the way. and
通
just
れ
last
な
time
さそうな
it was
橋
a
でござ
long
い
way
ま
to
す
go.
ね。
But the whole Ottawa River area, you guys, lots of sailing on water, lots of people camping, good stuff.
1052
You there, maybe?
Maple A, there it is.
More
There's
ground is a
the
little messed up, but yeah, you can see the logo.
Bell Center, home arena of the Canadien de Montréal, most storied and successful professional hockey club in the world.
へー、カナダ。
24. Hear that, Leafs fans? 24.
やっぱ世界にはいろんなとこがまだまだありますな。
Yeah, but you have to give Leafs fans the fact that they're still Leafs fans.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, they made it out of the first round last year for the first time since what 2004. So we'll give
First
them that.
time in
but
the salary cap era.
It
Yeah,
gave them
yeah,
false
yeah.
hope. Yeah, I tell you,
But-
everybody
haven't
got
gotten-
pumped over that.
yeah, they haven't
何
gotten
これ
a cup since '67. So
So, on that note,
なるほ
Maple
ど。
A, the
お
last
ー、こ
time
の 人
the
たち
Toronto
も
Maple
何
Leafs even made it to
もう
the
ほと
Stanley
んど
Cup Finals,
なんか
there were only 6 teams in the
なん
league.
かの塔だな。写真測量かなんかで
it's
作って
something.
る
I mean, yeah.
のかな
What's the point?
綺麗なデータじゃないでござ
I
い
mean, to
ま
be
す
fair, I
が。
can't really talk about 6 teams because I think like almost 8, 9, 10 of Montreal's cups were in that area. The original
あ
six, I
ま
believe.
た
Detroit,
BF109 が
Chicago,
おらさそう
Montreal, Toronto. Was it New York? Who
し
were
か
the
しスピードが
Rangers?
速いので
Yeah,
追い
New
つけない
York and I'm missing one.
しかし
Boston.
Montreal,
Yeah.
Toronto,
狙ってみるか。
Rangers, Red Wings, Blackhawks,
Yeah.
and Bruins. Boston Bruins.
Yeah,
They were
Boston.
just-
Yep,
just
yep.
the Bruins.
Yeah, 93 was the
見ようかな。
last one
ま
for
たに
the
しなか
Habs,
ったからな。
but at least, hey, at least you made the finals in 2021. So this is one of the best ones in my life. And actually, oh, my plane's on the ground, but it's fine. My
Doing
full
my
gravity
first
will
landing.
work. This bridge you guys see here, again, my full gravity is a little messed up, but this bridge here, actually, these are condominiums that they built. Again, really shabby scenery, but you can kind of get the idea. This is a condominiums they built for, wealthier people that just with this bridge can get to the Bell Center, and I believe some of the players live there. I mean, you see, this is a pretty big apartment complex, and they have this little area right there that they'll let you go straight to the Bell Center, so pretty cool thing.
By the way, anyone missed it? F's in the chat for Carey Price the other day. I felt really bad for him.
The draft.
Yeah, it was a really embarrassing situation, and you don't want to wish this on anyone. So, anyone who doesn't know, Carey Price, retired professional hockey player. He was the goaltender for Montreal for a very long time. Excellent player. Won the MVP award about 5 or 6 years ago. Probably be in the Hall of Fame one day. But as a special sort of treat for Montreal's fans, it was the NHL draft 2 days ago, and the team brought Carey Price on stage to announce Montreal's first-round draft pick this year. And he got up to the microphone, and he forgot the player's name. He had a brain cramp, and yeah, there's video of it. You feel so bad for him. You know, public speaking is difficult. He's not a trained speaker. He's an athlete. And then you also feel bad for the kid who got drafted, because, you know, being drafted into the NHL, this is like your greatest life's achievement at that moment. It's a part of your life you'll never forget. And then to have the team that picked you have their representative forget your name when they get to the podium, it was really kind of unfortunate situation all around.
I'm currently touring the circuit, the race actually was 3-4 weeks ago. So they have that yearly. Pretty cool circuit.
全然降りる気のないスピードでございますが。あ、突っかかってる。
Ruckus says he looked around for help with the name, and just like the rest of his career, he got no help.
That hurts. That hurts.
I mean, it's not wrong. It's not wrong.
He's not wrong. Yeah, he's not wrong, but it hurts.
But you're right. They should have.
Spitfire.
Those who aren't used to public speaking, even those who are, you still have prompts of some sort. Yeah. So have some kind of reminder, even if it's a little index card in the palm of your hand, and then you can reference those things when things get really tense on the stage. It's too bad. You learn.
Tears says not quite as bad as the Oscars announcing the wrong movie. Yeah, that was bad.
Goal なのかな?
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that was a funny moment.
I think in those moments like that, they actually have prompters. They look up and read off the prompter. They have prompters. They have no excuse, right?
So the Oscars, they are very heavily audited, and it's all the winners. They're tabulated. The votes are tabulated by one of the big three accounting firms. I think it's Price Waterhouse does it. Someone in chat will correct me if I got that wrong. But anyways, one of the really major international accounting firms does all the tabulation of the Oscar votes, and they have one of their senior accountants wearing a tuxedo standing just
うわ、スピード落としてるからチャンス。
And if ever the award recipient is named incorrectly, they are instructed that this person with the tuxedo will come onto the stage, grab the mic, and say, "I'm sorry, there's a correction. The actual winner is X." And that's exactly what happens a few years ago. The Best Picture winner was supposed to be Moonlight, and they incorrectly announced that it was La La Land.
あ、車輪が上がってく。おお。やった、見えた。すぐあっち離される。あんまりってことはないな。あのなみなみの迷彩で、はい、やっぱ。
That's a good one. Fly it like you rented. You know, I remember Ace of Spades told me when we were flying the DC-6 together. He said, "Fly it like you stole it." And I'd always heard, "Fly it like you rented," or "Drive it like you rented." A lot of rental cars get banged around. But that's actually a great expression.
this, I mean, I pay by the minute, not by anything else. So whether I fly full power or just at 60% cruise, I pay the same. It just takes me longer.
でも一瞬見えたな。この隙を逃さなかったぜ。
We're just on our way to Ottawa.
I'm thinking like those jokes.
Yeah, that's
whatever
what it was.
whatever developer programmed in a cookie, they'll make the same crash and
空でござますな。ちょっと霞んでるけれども。
Did you actually say the leaves?
Yeah, that's right.
That'll really get them going. What is the maple syrup giveaway, CDI? So Brad is
And how many
おお
liters?
すげえ。
and Brad Barron is a true Canadian himself too. From the east, from the Maritimes.
Well, Red, I believe Red, you were born in Newfoundland. And then he moved to Nova Scotia. He lived in Cape Breton, Sydney, and then 2 years ago back to St. John's.
So not a maritime. Here's a distinction. Even a lot of Canadians get this wrong. Newfoundland is not a maritime province. The maritime provinces are New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Islands. Collectively with Newfoundland, the 4 of them are Atlantic.
And Quebec. And Quebec. Quebec is included in the Atlantic provinces.
Oh, so I didn't even know that. It makes sense because it borders the Atlantic Ocean. But yeah,
Basically it's everybody that touches the Gulf of St. Lawrence gets into the Atlantic Canada.
Okay, here's a question for the Canadians in chat. Yeah, this is true. This is not a joke. This is 100% fact. I'll ask Andrew. I'll ask you this one. If you turn the television on and you want to watch the 8 o'clock news, and you're in Newfoundland, what time is the 8 o'clock news in Newfoundland?
The 8 o'clock news in Newfoundland?
8:30.
It's at 7:30. It's 7:30 everywhere else.
But it is actually 8 o'clock.
It is 8 o'clock in Newfoundland, but it's 8:30 or 7:30. Like half an hour later.
Newfoundland has its own time zone.
It's offset by half an
technically, Newfoundland and Labrador have its own time zone because that's technically the name of the province.
So now this is curious. Is Labrador on Newfoundland time, not Eastern time?
おお高速道路だ。高速道路だ。
Actually, I don't think Labrador would be on Eastern time. It would more likely be on Atlantic time.
You know, politically, Labrador
Same
is
as me.
part of
これ
Newfoundland
なん
and
か
Labrador.
写真測
But
量で作った
geographically, it's basically part of Quebec.
Google マップチックな怖い。
So that's interesting. That would be.
Yeah, red. No, yeah, I figured red.
あれしてますけれども。
Atlantic, same as I am.
Okay, so same as New Brunswick.
ヒュー。
Yeah.
お空中にオブジェクトからヒュー。
And there's a small part of Labrador Valley that is same how I must northeast of it.
There are also, off the coast of Newfoundland, there are 2 really small islands that are French territory, as in belong to the country of France.
They are part of France, yes, St. Pierre and Miquelon.
And they actually have international airports. You can fly to, I think, Paris or somewhere from St. Pierre and Miquelon. These 2 little tiny islands that hardly anyone lives on off the coast of Newfoundland. And they have international airports that fly across the Atlantic.
カナダもなかなかすげえな。
Closest land is Newfoundland. It's the island of Newfoundland. My dad actually has
と
been.
にかく我が国と違ってもう平べったいところが延々
They had some kind of
続きますからな。
area, a holiday kind of thing, and they actually hired the band that the pipe band that my father belonged to come over and do a concert. So they actually went over.
So a couple interesting questions from the chat. Smako says, does that count as a domestic flight? Yeah, it would, because you're not leaving France. And then Invertus Chaos says, French citizens wouldn't require a passport to travel there. EU citizens don't require a passport, because they're technically part of the EU as well.
Yep. And it's kind of like Greenland is actually part of Denmark.
Yeah. Okay, here's a trivia question. And a lot of Canadians, I'm guessing, don't even know the correct answer to this one. The way I'm going to phrase it is going to sound like a trick question. But with how many other countries does Canada share a land border? A land border specifically.
3?
It's gonna be a single-digit thing. Yeah, I was thinking around the 3 or 4 range.
I'm like, my bet is obviously the United States. I think Russia up in Alaska maybe, and Denmark or something, some Nordic country because of the treaty that was a thing recently. I'm correct.
Yeah, so Russia's wrong, but you're right. You're correct about the other two. United States and Denmark.
自由じゃな
Canada
メッ
has
サ
a
ー
border
シ
with the
ミ
United States
ッ
and
ト
Denmark, and the Denmark one is
メッ
only
サーシ
recent
ミ
in
ッ
the
ト
last
な
4 or
の
5 years. So
BF109
there is an island uninhabited. It's just a rock. There's no valuable minerals.
Nothing
There's
there.
nothing. It's just this rock in the North Atlantic near Greenland and near Canada. And both countries, Denmark and Canada, both claim this
この
island.
スピットファイアを
Yes,
狙
the
っているの
whiskey
では
war.
な
I'm
い
going
か
to get to that in a second. Both countries claimed it's called Hans's Island. Both countries claimed it. Denmark and Canada both claimed it as their sovereign territory. And every now and then, a Canadian naval vessel would stop by, send a few sailors ashore, plant a Canadian flag, and leave a bottle of Canadian whiskey. And then a few months later, a Danish Navy vessel would sail past, send a party of sailors ashore, take down the Canadian flag, put up a Danish flag, and leave a bottle
スピッ
of
トファイア
Danish
を追ってい
whiskey.
るなやっぱり
And take the Canadian
おー
whiskey.
世紀の大
And
戦
this
じゃ
went
い
on for years. And again, there's no strategic value to this
両
island.
方とも頑張れ
It's completely uninhabited. There's no animal life there. There's no plant life there. It's literally just
のが
a solid
その
rock
その
in the
最初の
North
位置
Atlantic.
取りが良かった
No,
というか
no
空中
importance
戦
at
す
all,
る
but
ゲーム
both
じゃないし
countries
お
claimed it.
これ
And
ロー
then now, in order to solve the whiskey war, Canada
背面
and
飛行に
Denmark
入っ
signed
た
a treaty and
な
basically
ぜ背
divided
面
the
飛行
island
に
in
入ったか
half.
あれ
And
リ
now
フトの時も全
Canada
然
and
スピッ
and
トファイア
Denmark
無視しちゃった
technically
じゃん
share
どこ
a
行くの
land border
だから隊長の
on
とこに
Hans's
行くの
Island
か
in
ね
the North Atlantic.
隊長のとこで巡航飛行
uh,
巡航しな
the
さい
resources in the sea around those
いいから
islands. Because if you own
ファイ
that
アも
island,
背面してる
you
場合じゃないや
technically
ろ
have access to the resources
巡
offshore
航
as
しろ
well,
って
right, to a certain distance.
Right. I could be wrong.
ク
about
ルー
this,
ジング
but
ですよ
I
ク
believe
ルージング
both Canada, like so, it's near
これ
Greenland and
して
it's
くださ
also
い
near
ほらワインのスピッ
islands
ト
in
いやいや
the
いや
Canadian Arctic.
ワインのメッサーシミット
So
止まりなさ
I
い
think it actually gives access to more water
巡航速度
resources
スピードオーバー
than
で
your
す
country would have
ベ
already
ンベ
had
ベ
in
ー
their
ンお
existing
ー来た来た来た来た
I could be wrong about that though. But yeah, it was the most strategically insignificant, non-important island ever.
おーかっ
And
こいい
both countries claimed
あ
it.
なみ
Said,
な
"No,
み
this
の
is
迷
our
彩
island."
だ
And,
いい飛行機ですなあいいなあドイツの人もスピットファイア作ってもらえて
The question I
スピッ
would
トファイアじゃねえや
throw here
メッ
is
サー
how
シミ
is
ット
whiskey
BF109
spelled?
BF109 作ってもらえた
oh,
ら
that is a good question.
ドイツの人も満足でしょう
I don't know
この
the
後ろ
answer.
の万字型のマークは
Yeah,
使っ
but
ちゃ
what's
ダ
the
メなん
Canadian
ですよね
way?
ド
What's
イツ
Canadian
っ
way
て
with the E?
法律で
Canadian,
I can't
あの
remember.
戦争の頃のマ
I can't- I
ークっていうことでなので万字
I can't
型じゃなく
remember
てちょっ
if
と
it's the,
万字じゃない
if it's
形
spelled
にな
EY
ってま
or
す
just Y.
おお見えたじゃん
Canadian
あ
way is the same as
BF109 ってビリンは引き込み式じゃなかったっけ
That's kind of what I thought, but I couldn't remember.
Maple A, you might want to.
And I'm
G6 グ
passing
ス
a
タフ
POI, but it's
G シリーズはプロペラの真ん中から機関銃が撃てたんじゃない
That's
かな
a water tower. Yeah, the significance
Well,
of it is.
MSFS
Redbeard's got an interesting
SF では
bit of trivia here. It's
あの武
true.
器の表現は現金な
Santa
ので
Claus,
マーケプレで買ったやつにはないですけどね
Father
多
Christmas
分
And
おーかっ
every
こ
year,
え
if you're a child in
Phew.
Canada, you can write a letter to Santa Claus. Santa Claus' mailing address is Santa Claus, North Pole, postal code HOHOHO, aka ho ho ho.
which follows our Canadian postal code tradition properly.
And no stamp is required. Every one of these letters will be
まあどうしても戦争映画だと悪役になっちゃいますからなドイツ軍は
parents maybe just cover their ears
まあ
for a
どっ
second.
ちか言う
They
と
ruin
悪
some
役
holiday
側で
happenings.
出てくることが多い飛行機ですけれども
So fair warning. Every one of these letters from Canadian children receives a written response from a volunteer employee from the Canadian Postal Service, and they donate their own time to answer letters from children, as if they're Santa Claus writing back to these children. And this has been going on for decades.
I can't believe it. You just ruined Christmas for me.
I know.
Unbelievable.
As if.
The other thing,
さあじゃあ
airspace,
同じ数字国の仲間としてスピットファイアをやりに行きますか。だな。スピットファイアいないっすね。恐れをなして逃げましたね。182RG もちょっと欲しいんだよな。ウィッシュリストに入れとこうかな。
Where you could call this number and Santa Claus would answer the phone. The child dialed the number, but accidentally dialed the wrong number, and somehow got connected to NORAD command. This is a true story. And thought we were talking to Santa Claus. And the military, the Air Force officer who took the phone call, realized what was happening and decided to play along. And ever since then, every year, NORAD, who of course tracks all aircraft in North American airspace, they have the NORAD Santa tracker. Yep. And so it's now done on the web, but in the days before the web, it was, they put press releases out and go on the radio and the television.
BF109 じゃなかったけど、大脱走もなんか最後ドイツの飛行機盗んで逃げきれない人がいるんですよね。スイスに向かって飛んでたな、あれは。
It all started because of a wrong number.
Something is off. Something doesn't fly.
Something doesn't fly.
See what's wrong?
Hex is in an Antonov AN2.
Right. What's wrong? It doesn't line up.
Yeah, I'm following.
Alexandria.
What's wrong?
Well, Hex always flies a Dark Star. That's like his trademark.
Oh, okay. So that's
Always
what's wrong.
Star.
That's a beautiful plane to fly. That thing just wants to fly. Even when you try and land it, it wants to float forever. It was made. Well,
That's enough. Yeah.
Speaking of trademark planes, I got Edarin to my 6. Edarin always flies the Halo Pelican. And who knows, maybe in November when the Dune Ornithopter. We'll see.
But I will switch over to that. I will always fly over.
The Ornithopter looks pretty cool.
Oh,
I have to say. I'm excited for that.
I'm actually looking forward to part 2 of the movies than the aircraft. But
I do so hope that they nail the sound.
Yeah, Whiskey Guy also has an interesting one here. Speaking of Antonov, Canada is also the country with the largest Ukrainian diaspora. Yeah, so the greatest number of people of Ukrainian descent, number 1 is Ukraine itself, number 2 is Russia, and number 3 is Canada. And in fact, one of the most Canadians, most famous Canadians to ever live, Wayne Gretzky, his family is from Ukraine.
スピットファイヤーおらんのかね。
I think his father, Walter Gretzky, was born in Canada.
オルトンさん。
Grandfather was born in Ukraine. Someone in chat.
When you say Canadian, most people say, "Oh, Wayne Gretzky."
上がる。ちょっとなんとなく Xbox みたいなゲームコントローラーで操縦してる動きですございますな。
Red Baron says, my cousin just got transferred to Cheyenne Complex with the Royal Canadian Air Force. I joke she's gone to Stargate Command. She responds, I'm not allowed to talk about that.
Ah, 止まっちゃった。ちょっと待って。燃料。
Good shot, Peter.
急げ
How's your watching?
どう？あれ燃料じゃないのか？コントロール E。おー、やべえ。
Allegedly, there's a room closet in Cheyenne Mountain. They both Stargate Command.
That's a good joke. もう空回りに絡まるか。ミグ29もおる。ミグ29。 Zerk River says, enjoying all the Canadian trivia. Greetings from Chilliwack, British Columbia. Well, Zerk River, greetings from Vancouver.
Spitfire.
In fact, let's go around. We'll start with our panel, and then we'll turn it over to chat. Peter and Tom, who should we pick on today? Which of our guests?
Difficult. They should all do a
公園
part.
のスピットファイヤーどこ行った
Maybe we do our
Okay, why don't
our good friend
we
Forder.
go left to right? Why don't we start with Andrew, then Arash,
隊
then
長
Howard,
しかおら
then
へん
me
かな
Blaine. We'll all do it.
隊長と
That's good.
曲劇
Okay,
交
so let's
代
start
の
with
隊
Tom.
長
We'll go clockwise around. So Tom,
Way.
Peter, myself, then the four panels from Tom. So where are we from, first of all? If
Oh, yeah.
you're from Canada, say your city and province. If you're from another non-Canadian country, just say which country you're from, and then we'll do the same for chat. So Tom, over to you.
I'm from Belgium.
これだけど車輪も出るのかこの
Hey,
飛行
I'm joining you today from Vancouver, British Columbia. I'm originally from St. John, New Brunswick. I've also lived in Calgary,
Canada.
Alberta for a good portion of my life. So I've been
Canada
quite around Canada at various different points. All right, Andrew, over to you.
I live in Bedford, Nova Scotia, and right
あスピットファイヤーも早めに飛
now
行
it's
して
a
る
15-minute drive to where I was born and raised. So I really haven't gone very far from where I grew up.
By the way, I want to welcome in Scruffy Tan, who just rated us. Welcome,
Scruffy.
Scruffy and all your raters.
Hey, Scruff.
今日は隊長 BF109 が見れてよかったっすよ
I live in
あま
Fredericton,
だいる
New Brunswick.
あオラを誘う
Province. I've been living in Canada since
く
2005.
ー
All right, very good. Howard, what about you?
トンネルの汽笛
I was
に
born in
乗りそうでございますな
to a sergeant in the army, so I was an army brat.
いい空ですなでもちょっと若干曇り気味ですな
That
隊
was a lot of
長
fun. And we traveled all over Canada, of course. Lived in Alberta, and many places, but I reside in Toronto, Canada, and that's where I ended up staying for my career, and that's where my raised a family here. But I've been all over Canada, and I've lived in many places. And then on traveling in business, I've visited most of the cities in Canada, and I get a taste of all of those cities along the way through my career. So, a vast country that most don't realize how wide it is and how many time zones we have. Until you get on a plane, and then it's still long.
Yeah. As an army brat, did you ever live in or near Captain Arash's town of Fredericton, of course? CFB
yeah.
Gagetown,
Yep.
major ground forces base.
Gagetown and
後ろにいっぱいいるあの塊は何じゃろう
Canada, and when I joined the forces, I wanted
ジ
to
ョン
be
ジェ
a
ット
pilot.
EC40
But
って見えない
Canadian
け
Air
ど
Forces, they just pick where they need you, and it's called the Unified Forces back in
What
those
did
days.
you
Right?
look
We're
at
talking about the late 70s, everybody. And they ended up putting me on a
Long
army base.
ago,
in
so
Lawrence,
it
Pictou,
did-
Winnipeg, and Trenton, and these other air places. And so that's why I didn't stay in, even though my brother stayed in his
Ito.
career. I just said, I'm not going to be marching around doing army stuff, and I really want to be up in the air. So I got out of the army, and I eventually got my pilot license on my own time. So that way I still got that fix.
All right. Maple, what about you? Where are you from?
I am from Vancouver, BC, Canada. I obviously was born and raised. Lived 12 years in Montreal, then we decided to move over here. And currently, I
こ
technically
の
live
シ
in
ステム
London,
180 に
Ontario.
RG ってあ
I
れ
and I
マイクロソフトフライトシミュレーター
So
2000に入ってた
should
や
get
つ
my
か
PPL by the
な
end of this year, my CPL in 2 years,
ジョンジェットも
and
なかなかいい
in
です
3
な
finally start my dream since I was 6 years old to be a pilot and looking commercial, but obviously we'll keep my options open, maybe go private, but it really
ピ
we'll
カ
see
ちゃ
what
んの
happens.
し
But
か
yeah,
し
so
ホンダジェットは
currently
全然
Vancouver
見ない
for the summer
の
obviously, but yeah, London, Ontario is my temporary home as I work towards my ultimate goal.
All right, excellent. Now, I see a comment from Long Haul Skies in chat. It says the thing that always gets me about Canada is it's basically the same amount of time to go east to west Canada as from Toronto to London. Now, Long Haul Skies in this case means London, UK, not
Right.
London, Ontario. Because London, Ontario is actually not that far from Toronto, but London, UK, across the Atlantic. But yeah, going from Halifax to Vancouver is basically, I think, might even be greater than the distance to fly transatlantic.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's 6 to 7 hours to go to Vancouver. It's 4 to 5
And I've crisscrossed it many times, so I can tell you guys, those are long flights. And when we go down to Florida or even down to Mexico, Mexico City from Toronto is 4.5 hours. 4.5 hours just gets me to Vancouver from Toronto. So it's not even all of Canada, the same distance, right? That's a
on Howard's stream, we have sometimes we get teasing our Europe friends about the fact that, you know, using me as an example, I can leave my house at it's just outside of Halifax and drive north for 3 hours. I'm still in Nova Scotia.
Yep.
You do that in Europe, you could be in 3 different countries.
2割は何ですかい
Yeah, so I mean that's the joke. We mentioned this in the stream.
どこっち
In Europe, in North America, 100 years is a long time. In Europe, 100 kilometers is a long distance.
Yeah, that's true. But also, you know, the price of gas anyway, it's a good thing it is shorter distances.
それは雨かな
D Payne says, this is my first group fly that I've been able to participate in its entirety. This is awesome. Well, glad you're enjoying it, and glad we can showcase some beautiful scenery in my home country of Canada, and we've got some great Canadian flight sim streams.
いや、カナダ。おお。やっぱカナダに来るとカナダの航空会社の飛行機が飛んでんだ。いや、カナダ。
You can take turns. Tap each other, you can go tag team style. Tap each other in or out as desired.
いや、カナダ。
But chat, this is your moment.
お客さん乗ってます
Chat,
な。
where is everyone from? Write it in the chat, let us know. And our forecast panelists are going to read all your locations off.
お素晴らしい景色ですな。
Well, the first one I see is
カナダ。
just north of Montreal.
You got the name quicker than
Yeah, he just named
You have to read all of them.
Hamburg, Cambridge, and Hawaii, and Norway, and Germany, and Rome. Wow, Hamilton. Okay, Hamilton.
I can solve this. I can solve this everywhere.
Los Angeles.
That's where Trent's from. They're from everywhere.
Sweet.
Orlando,
Taichung,
Prague,
okay.
Sweden, New York, Kentucky, Alberta, Liverpool, Ohio, Northern Ireland, Los Angeles, Regina, Germany, Netherlands, New Zealand, United States, Germany, Hamburg, Boston, Monaco,
Yeah, Canada, Akita.
I think I see Michigan, I see Denmark, South Carolina, Norway, Brazil, and Cambridge. Missouri, Hungary, Dallas, Bavaria, Hawaii. Hey, Seb, Sweden. Peter, I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. CD, you can do that one.
Let's CD do that one. Say Peters. Go ahead, say Peters.
I'm not seeing it in the chat. Oh, yeah.
I think he's just pounding on his keyboard.
No. Those are actual places.
I think he's looking it up in Google.
That looks like a Hawaiian name.
The first one is Polish. And the last one is Finnish. But those are the world's most unpronounceable places.
Well, there's also that one in Wales, the longest name.
Yeah, longest name, yeah. My dad can, if he thinks about it for a little bit, he can actually pronounce it.
There's a famous YouTube clip of a weather reporter
Spitfire.
Read that town name perfectly first try.
Yeah. Also, can I ask a question to everyone on this panel and everyone in chat? Anyone, yes or no in chat, and obviously panel folks here, has anyone tried a ketchup chip? I know it's a Canadian thing. I know most of us probably on this panel have, but in chat, has anyone tried the ketchup chip? Which is Canadian thing?
Yeah, I will turn in my Canadian passport. This is a hill I will die on. Ketchup chips are gross.
I agree. I mean, I agree. I agree with you.
So,
you're not alone.
You know, when you think about it, when you have French fries, a lot of people will have a side of ketchup, and they will dip their fries in ketchup. Kids do it too. So then why not take a potato chip, which is also fried potato, and put ketchup flavor on it? So, it works.
Yeah, so I was about to say what Bravo Juliet Tango here says in the chat. This is where I was going to go with this. I do not like ketchup chips, but the other distinctly Canadian potato chip flavor, all dressed, I will have those anytime. They're so much better than ketchup.
So what's all dressed? Is that
I'm the other. I'm CD. I'm the other way.
The other way.
Given those two choices, I'll take ketchup over all dressed.
So I've heard a rumor. I actually don't know if this is true, but I heard that the all dressed seasoning is basically at the potato chip factory. It's all the seasonings from every other flavor, like salt and vinegar, barbecue, everything else. it ends up like the
オタワっての
excess
聞いたこ
seasoning
とある。あ
ends
そ
up
こ
in a
がゴールか
receptacle
な
at the end, and then it all mixes together, and then that's what they use to make the all-dressed seasoning. I don't know if that's actually true or not. Bravo Juliet says that is true, but that's what I've heard.
Meanwhile,
There's
I've
a
reached the
there's a
capital.
ブラボ
Look
ー
at
ジュレ
this.
ー
Simtom is on Parliament
さっき
Hill.
のあれの人か
there's
Wow,
a
how do you
company
get there
in-
already?
カナダ
There's a company in New Brunswick that makes
Yeah, Canada.
they call them storm chips. Now my wife is a chip lover, and this is 4 flavors of chips. She bought a bag of storm chips a couple of weeks ago.
なんかちょっと
She was very
あ
disappointed.
トムキャットもいるじゃ
She
ん
was expecting
トム
either
キャッ
4
ト
bags
あー
of
でもなんか
individual flavored chips
逆
or
走して
one
る
bag with
早すぎて
individual flavored chips mixed into the one bag. What it is, it's a bag of chips with all 4 flavors on every chip.
Ooh. Well, isn't that
Yeah.
sort of all dressed?
Something along the similar idea, but yeah, she was not happy because that's not what she was
あ
expecting.
体調発見
So let's just talk about what we're seeing on Simtom's POV here.
体
This
調
is
護衛隊は
Parliament
どこ
Hill
に
in
行ったんじゃ
Ottawa,
ろ
the center of Canada's federal government. This round building at the back, that's the National Library, the Parliamentary Library. The clock tower, that's the Peace Tower, as it's known as. And interesting, I actually didn't know this until not too long ago. If you watch Parliament on television, or if you see in the news, question period, or the Prime Minister delivering a speech in Parliament, or anything like that, that is not actually taking place in this main building in the center. It's actually in the West Block, which we're going to see come into view momentarily to the bottom of your screen. So this building just coming into view now, this is the West Block, and that's actually where the House of Commons is located, is in this building.
いい
So
ね
this is where all the parliamentary debates take place. Not this what's known as center block, which is where the parliamentary library is. And I think, someone correct me if I'm wrong, I think the center block is where all the members of parliament have their offices. But the actual House of Commons, where the government of Canada functions, that takes place in this building, the West Block.
Yeah, and
Come
question
on,
period is great entertainment too.
Canada
So anyone's into
functions.
entertainment, it's pretty hilarious watching people yell at each other, not answering questions. So, I don't know.
Yes.
Brad says they're actually it's
体
actually
調
in
ど
the
こ
old
がゴー
center
ルですかい途中でコースが失われてしまったのでゴールが分かりませんで
And at the very start, in that big open area in front of the main Parliament Tower, main Parliament Building Tower, there's a fire that's been burning for a long time. Anybody
Yeah,
know
Tom,
about
you
that?
can actually see it in the sim. If you want to
You
just
can't
zoom
if you
in
get close, right?
on that
On that front
center,
lawn.
the
Alright,
center
shift
walkway
なのかな
between those 2 strips of grass. There's a round, kind of dark patch that's kind of visible. Yeah, you got it there.
This one here.
Yeah, and Howard, why don't you tell our viewers what's this?
Well, this is the flame, and I don't remember the story exactly. I mean, I haven't read it recently, but my wife being a school teacher, I remember hearing the story, and then they always do field trips to Ottawa. And every time I've gone there in business, I used to go there a lot in wintertime for business, and then I would just swing by and learn some more about the country. And if I remember correctly, I think this was the Eternal Flame, and I think it's something to do with China. But
トムキャット
my
いる
memory
な
fades on this.
狙う
I'm
か
with the details.
いかんいかん
I
体調
think
ごめ
this
んな
was
さい
something that Pierre
よそ見してました
Elliott Trudeau started way back in the
トム
day.
キャット
Also,
狙ってい
I
き
could
ますよ
be, it's just faint right now. So someone pick up the details for me.
No, you're absolutely right. It was as part of the 1967 Canadian Centennial celebrations.
That's it.
They
Yeah.
started what we call
一
the
過性に
Centennial
狙う
Flame, and now most people know it as the Eternal Flame.
The Eternal Flame, yeah, and it's still burning and it's still going, and it's there year round, and even in the cold of winter, which it can get very cold in Ottawa, and it's still there going, and you can just go up and just kind of admire the fact that this flame is still going on.
イーグル見かけねえな
Never interrupted. Wow, that's beautiful views from Simtom. Have you
Yeah,
got live
it's
weather on
very-
Simtom? Is that it?
Yeah,
Is
it's a
that-
very dramatic live weather.
That's
Like weather
amazing.
lifetime.
It really is amazing.
Now, Simtom, if you want to just move your camera, sort of follow the streets in the direction you're facing right now, go forward, and we'll see another very famous, important Canadian government building, which is the Supreme Court of Canada. It's just a little bit further ahead, kind of like 1 block away from Parliament Hill.
この速度で飛ぶのは大変じゃろ
Nope,
ね
it's past that.
150のとギリか
Oh, I didn't check.
Okay, it's the building in the top right of your screen right now. Now the bottom right. Over there. For delay.
This one.
トムキャット F14
Yes, that one. yeah, that is the Supreme Court of Canada, right here.
It's right near the. There's a library there too, where every Canadian author, they have their books in that building, right there along that same line. I think it's the one right beside it, the small one.
So we could go there and look up Elaine's books.
Absolutely, yeah. She's got 4 books in there that she's written: 2 children's books and 2 adults. That's how I know about it. They all get an ISBN number, and you have to send 2 copies of
オ
each
ッタ
one
ー、
to
マクドナルド、カルティエ空港、アルコゴールかな。
Is it the clock tower that has a flag on?
マクドナルド。
It's, every day.
マクドナルド。
Use the flag
マックか。
and, you can actually request
マッ
one.
ク、カルティエ。カルティエっていうのもなんかブランド品で聞いた
Last
こと
time
が
I checked, there was like a 75 years wait list.
ブランド合体。
for the actual flag from the
To
tower,
get a
right?
used Canadian flag.
Wow, to
Yeah.
get a used Canadian flag from the actual tower. Wow, wow. I didn't know
That's
that.
I didn't know that. That's neat.
That is cool, yeah.
There was with an exception that I think with an exception that there was I think for the 150th anniversary they actually kept that
も
flag.
う取得する取得する。
That's what this mug is for. We did a big celebration that in Canada in 50.
Yeah,
All
and
around.
that blob right there in the middle of the screen with the 2 buttons and whatnot, that place is going to be a huge.
釣っとるわ。
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Simtom, if you want to keep going, follow the same road you took towards the Supreme
いつか
Court,
買う
go
け
the
ど
opposite
今じゃ
direction.
ない。お
The
金
direction
が
we're
ない。
facing now.
Okay. Check the clock.
Yes,
Check
yes,
the
we're
clock.
over time.
No, it's not accurate. It's not accurate. Unplayable.
No, he's look. I think you want to know. You want to look at the clock to see if it actually tells you
It's
the
real
time of day,
time.
right?
みんな BF109 出るか。でもファントムももうすぐ
It's a
出
Yeah,
る
so
ん
if
じゃ
you
ない
see
かい
a building
マ
coming
ケ
up here
プ
that
レ
looks
に
like a castle, this is the Fairmont Chateau Laurier.
That's
That's
it.
yeah, right there. That's it. So that's the big famous railway hotel
Famous.
in Ottawa.
And it has
Very-
ghost stories. We're still
There are,
residents
yes,
living
there
in
are
there
many
from
ghost
long
stories
ago.
in that
Yeah.
hotel.
Oh yeah.
And also, just across the street from that, we have Canada's
だんだんだんだんさっき
border.
ルート
See
バ
a
フ
big
ェが見ました
intersection.
ぜ
There's a government monument, and this is where the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
ゆずを日本海軍も日本陸軍も
I
誰か
think
作ってく
CDL,
れ
I think a lot of people now know about this.
もう戦争しないから飛
Yeah,
行機
there was
見
a
る
very
だけ
tragic event there. I think 2014 or maybe 2015. There was a Canadian. There were 2 Canadian soldiers. They were the ceremonial guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier here at the War Memorial in Ottawa. And there was someone who had a grievance with the governments for whatever reason, and went on a shooting spree in Ottawa and shot and killed one of the soldiers who was defending the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier here in Ottawa. Then went into Parliament Hill, into the government building, with the intention of murdering elected Canadian politicians. Thankfully, that was the only one fatality was the soldier. Very, very sad story.
And I'd forgotten about that. CDL. I was thinking about when a lot of the Americans came up and did the Freedom of Movement.
Oh, there
And
was
how
that
the
too,
Tomb of the
yeah.
Soldier was front and center in world news, right? And
マ
so
ク
a
ド
lot
ナ
of
ルド
people got
空
a
港に
glimpse
降
of
りるか
Ottawa
どこじゃい
and these areas.
マクド
I
関西で
think
は
that
関
that
東では
shooting
マー
at
ク
the National War
マッキン
Memorial
ト
actually
ッシュ
caused a change in procedure with the guards at that monument. They are actually armed now.
Oh,
They before I believe I'm not 100% on this, but I believe prior to that they carried the rifles, but they were not loaded. I believe they actually carry ammunition.
interesting. I always assumed they were loaded.
But a lot of people won't know, and I was trained as a marksman in the Canadian Armed Forces. A lot of people don't know that even when we go overseas to defend whatever we're going over there for, we're mainly the peacekeeping part of that solution. And believe it or not, they were sending us over there with rubber bullets, literally rubber bullets. We don't get, we don't have the ability to kill if we had to. So, rubber bullets will certainly stop somebody, but that's a scary thing for Canadian soldiers to have to head over there without real ammunition. And a lot of them just said, that's it, we're getting out.
So SMT, you're saying that the forces guards themselves are not armed, but they have. I presume
Charlie
that they would have,
Yankee Oscar
Ottawa City
Whiskey.
Police or Parliament police
So they're
officers.
started, I see.
So there is somebody there that has actually a firearm.
Tustin brings up a good point. Yeah, July 1st. We mentioned actually this a couple months ago. We did a stream in Newfoundland commemorating the anniversary of Newfoundland joining Canada as the 10th province. But July 1st, despite being Canada Day, is also dating back to 1916 in World War I, the Battle of the Somme. The Royal Newfoundland Regiment. It was the pride of Newfoundland. All their brave young men all signed up and joined. Newfoundland was not a Canadian province at the time. It was a British colony back then. But all these young men signed up for World War I service, and the Battle of the Somme, they were ordered over the top, and went into no man's land and suffered 90% casualties in one day. And imagine the youth of an entire province almost completely wiped out in a single day. And to this day, a lot of people in Newfoundland, whereas it's a sort of celebratory occasion for much of Canada, in Newfoundland it's also a solemn day of remembrance. And in fact, the biggest university, Memorial University of Newfoundland, is actually named, it's memorializing, where it gets its name from, the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, and in 1916, how so many of the provinces, colony at the time, and province now, how so many of their brave young men were all wiped out in a single day.
だいぶオーバーしとるんじゃない時間。
You know, Shelton mentioned something too. There's been a trend in recent years where Canada Day, Australia Day as well. We mentioned this too. We did an Australia Day stream back in January. Given the legacy of colonialism and the way that both countries' indigenous populations have historically been treated by the settler population, there's sort of been a trend recently to treat these holidays less about celebration and drinking beer, and also more a time of reflection. So this would be my call to action. For any Canadians watching, anyone in chat, by all means, wave your Canadian flag, your maple leaf, have a beer, go to the beach, do whatever you want to celebrate Canada Day. But I also encourage you, everyone from Canada reading this, go online, find the Truth and Reconciliation report that was published a few years ago, and do a good turn of citizenship as a Canadian citizen, and read the Truth and Reconciliation report on Canada Day from back to front to back, read the entire thing. That'd be my call of action to any Canadians in the chat. Spend some time doing that tomorrow.
Now, it's mentioned in chat also about Gatineau being on the other side of the river. This is the border between the two provinces. So Ottawa is in Ontario, the province of Ontario, and Gatineau is in the province of Quebec. And believe it or not, I mean, back in the day, CDL, you can relate to this because you're also a musician, but back in the day when I was posted in Petawawa and we used to hang out in Ottawa as servicemen, we used to play in the bands, and we would play in a bar in Ottawa till 1 o'clock, which is when they closed, and then we would all head over, all the musicians would head over to Quebec to the bars that we knew there, and they would stay open till 3 in the morning. And so we would spell off those musicians because they'd been playing as long as we have, but they didn't get any breaks. So we would go and jump up on stage and play for them, and by 2 a.m. and by 2:30 a.m. places were getting rowdy. And so you had to be good as a musician or else you get beer bottles thrown at you. And so then we would come back across the Quebec border after everything closed at 3:30, 4 a.m. and start looking for restaurants. Those were the days, you guys. And so the big difference between those two, just a bridge in between those two provinces and their policies.
いいとこじゃな、ここもすげえな、この人。
Nightlife in Ottawa and Gatineau, again because it's a province, the provincial border separates the two. In Ottawa, on the Ontario side, provincial drinking age is 19 years old, and in Quebec, on the Gatineau side, the legal drinking age is 18 years old. And so a lot of young Ottawa citizens at age 18, they will cross the border, take the bridge across the river to Gatineau, and where they can legally drink and go to bars. Just from my point of view here, I'm currently flying over Gatineau. This building you see below me with really interesting architecture. I can't remember, it has a new name now. It was called the Museum of Civilization. I think they've changed the name now. I think it might be the Canadian Museum of Natural History. Someone in chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a very famous museum across from Parliament Hill. I'm also going to show you the National Art Gallery, which is a really cool museum, and there's a famous piece of art now present. You can see it in the sim too. It's called Mama, which is the French word for mother, and it's a giant spider, and it's really creepy looking.
I've seen that. It's scary.
It's really scary, and it's
Oh,
on the
chiro,
grounds
chiro,
right in
chiro.
front of the National Art Gallery, which I'm approaching right now. And I think the shadow of it shows up in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Oh, the AI AutoGen tried to actually do something with it. There it is. That's it. That kind of spindly-looking blob you see right there. And you can see the shadow of it as well. I'm trying to get a good shot of it right there. That is the art piece known as
なんかえらい
Mama.
いろんなものの線が歪んどる。
Encourage you to look that up online and see what it looks like. It's a really creepy giant spider right in front of the National Art Gallery in Ottawa.
There's there's an airport in Gatineau as well, where a vintage aircraft company operates out of. They fly some heritage aircraft like Spitfires, Hurricanes, and Corsairs.
Oh, very cool. All right, I'm gonna do a low.
あ、今日 DC さん。あ、この人 DC さんの人だけど今日見える。
Microsoft Flight Simulator. Yeah, we can do things that we cannot do in real life.
素晴ら
So
しい。
I'm literally gonna buzz the Peace Tower.
霞がかりたるカナダ。オタワ。
Peaceful of you.
Not very peaceful.
There we go. Buzz the Peace Tower in a beaver.
An actual airline in Quebec province called Core-i9. That's cool. And someone mentioned earlier in chat about changing our in our song is to say on
日
native
本
land
総
instead
発
of
の旅客機でも
regular words.
激しい掃
Some
除で
interesting
ございます
comments
ね
on。these things.
お客さんは乗っちょらんのでしょうか。
All right. Well, I think we're a little bit over time, so I think we should probably head towards McDonald Cartier International Airport for our full stop landing. But I do hope everyone enjoyed this tour of Ottawa, the national capital of Canada.
Here's a slight quiz. Who was Carl Cartier?
本当によくできてんなこのゲーム。
Well,
I mean, all the
these
airports are almost.
two different
All the
people,
airports.
right?
No.
Johnny McDonald, who
Are
was the first prime minister of
DC3
Canada,
見逃しちゃっ
and
た。あ、隊
Etienne
長だ。
Cartier. Is that right? Someone in chat, correct me if I'm wrong.
隊長の方に行くわ。
Jacques Cartier.
サイドスリップで速度を
Jacques
落とす
Cartier was the
技
guy that founded Quebec. No, found Quebec first, I believe.
Yeah.
Samuel de Champlain founded
なんかあんまりやるとなんか
1608.
あれなんだったっけスナ
All
ッ
right,
プロ
I've
ール
got
しとる怖いけど
YOW in sight to my 12 o'clock. Crazy Fruit says, first time in Canada, loved it, beautiful scenery and some cool history. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that. We do have a panel of 5 Canadians on our stream today, so I hope we
これ
all
は史
get
上
to
最大の
contribute
時
something
間オ
to
ーバーじゃない
your
かな。
learning of our country.
Question for non-Canadians.
5
What
時
does the
半。
name Canada mean? Or where does it come
カナ
from?
ダみんな大好きなんだよもしかして
So we can't answer that.
We,
Okay.
yeah, we can't answer this. Someone in chat will know this, though. We've all seen the Heritage Minute. At least us Canadians.
Yeah.
Anyways.
That's why I said non-Canadian.
Those are great. Those heritage minutes.
Factual Gaul, right there, a part of our history.
Yeah, super ties in there.
Yeah, I see some Canadians have answered that question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super tie. Canadians know the answer.
Yeah, so the correct answer is the word Canada comes from the Algonquin indigenous language, and it means village.
And there is actually a subdivision, or maybe it's a city of its own now, called
サイド
Canada,
スリップじゃい。
outside Ottawa.
Yeah, my wife's uncle and aunt
なんか
live
ド
there,
ラグッ
and
と。
that's where they live. They don't live there anymore. They've moved to a different area of Ottawa, but
サ
that's
イ
where
ド
they
ス
were
リッ
when
プじゃい
we。were up to visit them a number of years ago.
I'm on my final.
Okay, switch over to Arash's POV.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but
Oh, you don't want everyone to watch your landing and judge you?
That's why I'm not
why we're
announcing.
here.
That's why
why
I'm
we're
not
here.
announcing.
The whole reason I'm joining this stream is to judge other people's landings.
みんな降りていく。隊長について降りるで今日こそ
this
は
is my first flight with this plane, so
Yeah, that's a good way to position it. Right? Understand.
some excuses, right?
It's Canadian egg hasn't. Gee whiz.
I know,
Don't
right?
get
What
that.
a shame.
Get
Shame on
that,
me.
Arash. My
Now,
fellow
Arash,
Canadian.
are you a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident?
Canadian citizen.
All right, so
高くないかい隊長。
we have to revoke your citizenship if you don't
ちょいとばかり。
spend more time flying the Beaver.
You
Wait,
have
there's
to
a
do
minimum?
it now. That's it. You're compelled. You remember the last time CDL I tried to go up on the land with the beaver?
Yeah.
It wasn't pretty, but
Yeah,
now
that
I
was
can
in
do it
our
this time.
Bora Bora stream.
There we go.
Yeah, this one worked.
All right.
いけた。
Captain Arash is
Ooh.
down. Very nice landing.
Thank you.
I'm now on short final. So I'm on the float variant, the amphib. With
隊長がラ
retractable
グ
gear,
る。
so let's see how this goes. Slightly
Actually,
different
very
landing
easy to
technique.
fly.
Come on, CDL, try the belly up landing. Try the gear up landing.
With skids.
You'll
on a-
stop really fast.
Yeah. That's the approved short field landing technique in this aircraft.
Scrapes a bit, but man, the acceleration is impressive.
前に長いジャンボが
And although I was already flying over
Jumbo
overhead of
が
the
固まっ
field,
とる
I came back to the Parliament buildings because I am in a float plane.
ルフトハンザ
Decided to
じゃ
land
ん
on the
Hang
Ottawa
on,
River.
I'm flaring.
I hear
Oh.
the chain horn.
Little bit hard on that one. It's fine.
There's a story.
Whoa,
there,
whoa,
but it's okay.
こんな
I
のある
destroyed
ん
the
だ
video.
Was that Stallhorn, Jane? It is.
P40
recording
もい
machine.
るし
That's it. There she
な
is.
かなかいいじゃない
There she is.
It's uncanny how accurate Jane's
Whoa,
impression
whoa.
of a Stallhorn sounds like a real thing.
今日は満足度が高かったねやっぱジェットスターが飛んでるジェットスター実施3いいじゃないですか
Across the way.